بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا من سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله أما بعد فإن أصدق الحديث كتاب الله وخير الحدي حدي محمد صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم وشر الأمور محدثاتها وكل محدثة بدعة وكل بدعة ضلالة وكل ضلالة في النار رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي. So as we mentioned, alhamdulillah, today to discuss the Tafsir Surah Kahf, and we mentioned or should highlight that the virtuous nature of the surahs will enter upon the benefits, the fawaid or ahadith in praising the virtues of Surah Kahf. But before that, we find that this surah, the day when it should be read, that at times people pay a great emphasis on certain days, certain times and certain places. As far as the mu'min believer is concerned, days and places don't mean much unless Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given a significance to those days. As Ibn Izz Abdus Salam highlights, that days are given preference, a temporal preference or a spiritual preference by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala selects a certain day, a certain time, a certain location, then obviously that day becomes important because of the thawab, the reward that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala may attach to that day. Because some people try to focus on a certain day, certain time, and believe that I can just rely upon that one day of ibadah, 1 day of action, etc. So amongst those days that we do know clearly whereby Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has praised or highlighted those days, or the Prophet Muhammad highlighted those days, etc., is, for example, the days when we enter into Muharram. As we know, the 10th of Muharram is a day that the Muslims should try to fast. That was the day that Musa alayhi salam or Bani Israel was saved from Fir'aun. And the Prophet Muhammad, when he entered into Medina, he found them offering the fast, the Ahlul, the Yahud, the Jews, and he said, we have more right over Musa alayhi salam. And then another narration he highlighted, if I live to the following year, I will fast the 9th as well. So here you find the sunnah of fasting the 9th and the 10th, or the 10th and the 11th. And some ulama, Imam Ahmad, in the one narration going back to him, or in the Mughni of Ibn Qudama, to fast the 9th, the 10th and the 11th, all 3 days. And some of them highlight the reason for fasting 3 days is ikhtilafu ru'ya, a difference of opinion about the sighting of the moon. People think that this difference exists today, hundreds of years ago, that if there's a difference of opinion, then fast all 3 days. So that way you will definitely fast the 9th and the 10th, whichever day it ends up being. But the problem with many Muslims, they don't read heritage, they don't read history, they think that these are only current day arguments that exist. So Imam Ahmad, who died in the year 240 of the Islamic calendar, that's good 1200 years ago. And one of the ulama in the Mughni, Ibn Qudama, highlights that this is one view that exists. But obviously we get at times too technical, thinking that there could be a new science that exists. Even the famous hadith of Imam Muslim, that nahnu, paraphrasing the hadith, ummiyun, we're illiterate people. We don't write. So all this scientific study and all this, sometimes you can understand why certain ulama, they don't really care about the scientific aspect. Because the hadith are, we are people who are illiterate, we just count the days as they appear. Wallahu a'lam. But the day that concerns us, obviously at night time, certain times when you offer the prayer, and then you find Yawmul Jum'ah itself, the day of Jum'ah. That's why you find the whole surah in the Quran, called Surah Al-Jum'ah. Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu idha nudiya lis-salati min yawmil jum'ati fas'au ila dhikrillah. If you hear the call for Jum'ah, then you should come out and answer that call. So the virtuous day of Yawmul Jum'ah that you find is, you find the hadith once again narrated by Imam Muslim. وعن أبي هريرة رضي الله تعالى عنه قال قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم خير يوم طلعت عليه الشمس يوم الجمعة. The best day the sun has ever risen upon is the day, is يوم الجمعة. فيه خلق آدم. That is the day that Adam was created. أُدْخِلَ الْجَنَّةِ He was entered into paradise. وَفِيهِ أُخْرِجَ مِنْهَا And that was the day he was thrown out of, exited out of paradise. And likewise, you find another hadith, that is the day that whereby the day of judgment will be established on Yawmul Jum'ah. So we should be going back to the Qur'an, because referring back to the Qur'an throughout our lives, inshallah, and to drink from the fountain of the Qur'an, because we should all become Tullabul Qur'an, students of the Qur'an. Because any science that you study is all based upon the Qur'an. Whether you study Tafsir, Usul al-Tafsir, Hadith, Usul al-Hadith, Fiqh, Usul al-Fiqh, it's all based upon the Qur'an. The more the Qur'an, the understanding of the Qur'an you have, the more memorization of the Qur'an that you have, everything else will become quite simple to retain and to understand. And that's why you find that this famous hadith, يُقَالُ لِصَاحِبِ الْقُرْآنِ, we said to the companion of the Qur'an, اقرأ وارتقي ورتل كما كنت ترتل في الدنيا. Read and ascend like you used to recite in the dunya. فَإِنَّ مَنْزِلَتَكَ عِنْدَ آخِرْ آيَةٍ تَقْرَأُهَا And your location, your position will be the final verse that you stop upon. So if some of us only have Inna Atayna Kal-Kawthar and a few other surahs, then when you recite on that day, that's going to be your position in paradise. So that's the hadith, that wherever you stop reciting is your place in paradise. And also this hadith is a mild refutation. Those people are beginning to focus upon other things, about the memorization of poetry, al-anashid as well at the moment. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not going to ask a person, how many lines of poetry did you learn? Al-anashid, what did you learn? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not going to ask. That's a lot of the ulama, even though some of them have even allowed anashid, they said if it begins to give preference over the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, فَهُوَ شَيْء بَاطِل, it's something vain. It's falsehood, it's waste of one's time. So even the ulama who have allowed it, they've still laid down conditions. But at the moment we find this influx of this new culture is turning away from the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And likewise, a person should never feel any jealousy, if the word is correct, upon one's fasaha, one's kalam, one's balagha, one's speech, only of the Qur'an. عن ابن عمر رضي الله تعالى عنه عن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم قال لا حسد إلا في اثنتين. There's no jealousy except for in two individuals. رجل آتاه الله القرآن فهو يقوم به آناء الليل وآناء النهار. A man who stands with the Qur'an, who's learned the Qur'an and reads it day and night and gives it its due right. And the other man who's got the wealth and spends it day and night. Here the meaning of la hasada, hasad huna doesn't mean jealousy, it means ghibta, it means aspiration to be like that individual. Because hasad, jealousy, means that you want that person to lose that blessing that they have. Whereas ghibta means that you aspire to be like that individual and that person still has that blessing given to them. And that's also another side of the coin as well, that when many people are saying that the da'wah always seems to be political, there always seems to be some political speech, etc. All of us should be going back to the Qur'an. That's where the essence is for every single Muslim. Now the surah of the day of Yawmul Jum'ah, as we mentioned, the preference of the day of Jum'ah is none other than Surah Kahf, the 18th surah that we're going to go through, because especially if the day of judgment is going to be on a Friday, and likewise many of the major signs which occur, I mentioned inside, some of the major signs, I mentioned inside Surah Kahf as well. For example, the most major sign is Khuruj al-Dajjal, the coming out of al-Dajjal. And inshallah we'll talk in the second part about the topic of al-Dajjal. And thus you find many ahadith talking about من حفظ عشر آيات من أول سورة الكهف عصم من الدجال. Whoever memorizes the first 10 ayat from Surah Al-Kahf will be protected from الدجال. من قرأ العشر الأواخر من سورة الكهف عصم من فتنة الدجال. Whoever memorizes the final 10 ayat will be protected from الدجال. In another narration you find من قرأ ثلاث آيات من أول سورة الكهف. Whoever recites the first 3 ayat of Surah Al-Kahf will be protected from Ad-Dajjal. So here some of the ulama say, here you find the first 10, and then you find the final 10. So some of them say, you may as well memorize the whole of the surah. So that way you've got the first 10, and you've got the final 10 as well, or the least that one can do is memorize the first 10, and then memorize the last 10. And a protection for 8 days for every type of fitna. As you find, من قرأ الكهف يوم الجمعة فهو معصوم إلى ثمانية أيام من كل فتنة تكون فإن خرج الدجال عصم منه. Whoever recites any Surah Al-Kahf on the day of Yawm al-Jum'ah, that person will be protected for 8 days from every type of fitna, calamity. كل تكون فإن خرج الدجال عصم منه. And if the Dajjal comes out, then that individual will be protected from a Dajjal. Also another narration that you find, there is some statements of the ulama about these ahadith, about the authenticity of them, but we'll come to those which are more authentic. البيت الذي تقرأ فيه سورة الكهف أو البيت الذي تقرأ فيه سورة الكهف لا يدخله الشيطان تلك الليلة. The home in which Surah Al-Kahf is recited on Yawm al-Jum'ah, on that night shaitan will not enter into that home. But as I mentioned, in some of these ahadith, they need to be referred back and checked into greater detail. But a hadith which is checked and authenticated is من قرأ سورة الكهف في يوم الجمعة أضاء له من النور ما بينه وبين الجمعتين. Whoever reads Surah Al-Kahf on the day of Yawm al-Jum'ah, a light will spread for that individual ما بينه وبين الجمعتين, between that Friday and the following Friday. So whether the person reads it, once again ulama of fiqh begin to discuss whether to read it before the imam begins the khutbah or is it afterwards. But the safest opinion is any time on Yawm al-Jum'ah, the person before the sun sets, the person should try their best to read Surah Al-Kahf. Another hadith that we find, من قرأ سورة الكهف كما نزلت كانت له نورا يوم القيامة من مقامه إلى مكة. When I first read this hadith, I couldn't find authenticity, but alhamdulillah later discovered the authenticity of this hadith. But first we'll narrate the hadith. Whoever reads Surah Al-Kahf, كما نزلت, the way it has been sent down, it will be light for that individual on the day of judgment من مقامه إلى مكة, from the place he is all the way going to Mecca. إسناده الصحيح كما ذكر الشيخ ناصر الدين الألباني رحمة الله عليه. And its isnad is authentic as checked by the late Sheikh of Hadith, Sheikh Nasiruddin Al-Albani rahmatullahi alayhi. So to gain that light in the hereafter, then, and we should be trying to gain that light, because literally if you read some of the ahadith which talk about, for example, Al-Bara ibn Azib. Bara ibn Azib says, كان رجل يقرأ سورة الكهف. A man was reading Surah Al-Kahf. فقال, and then you find that a sakina came upon this individual. Tranquility came down upon this individual because of the reading of the Qur'an. Now if we analyze this hadith, that you find that the reason of this tranquility is a famous hadith that you find that Usayd ibn Hudayr was with his son. And he was reciting the Qur'an. And all of a sudden the horse which was beside him, because he was reading in the stable, began to move. And then he stopped reciting. Then he began to recite again, and the horse began to move again. Then he recited again, and then on the third occasion, then he stopped reciting, fearing that his son, as far as I recall, Yahya, could be trampled upon. Then he looked up in the sky and he saw clouds of light, masabih, and he saw these clouds of lamps of light that were there above him. And then he stopped reciting. And then when he told this to the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, he said that تِلْكَ السَّكِينَةِ تَنْزِلُ عِنْدَ الْقُرْآنِ. That is the tranquility that is brought down when the Qur'an is recited. أو تنزلت للقرآن, or because it comes down because of the reading of the Qur'an. So here you find the tranquility and the peace in general of the recitation of the Qur'an, and in the recitation of Surah Al-Kahf as well. Tranquility from the heavens, that the light stems and flows out of that individual. And thus you find that the light will flow from whichever direction, because the whole surah is called Surah Al-Kahf. And from that small location you find, look how much nur begins to disseminate from this surah, that it begins to shine everywhere. What is the light of this surah? One may be asking, what is the light that this surah that it has? And you can see if you go back to the reason of revelation of this surah, or for this surah, Ibn Ishaq, one of the ulama of Sirah, he writes that the Quraysh sent 2 men to the Jewish rabbis of Medina. Because remember, the Quraysh, they didn't have many answers to give back to the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ about, in terms of history, in terms of questions that he posed to them. So they knew that the best thing to do is that we should now go and approach the ulama the rabbis in Medina. So they sent An-Nadr ibn al-Harith wa Uqbat ibn Abi Mu'ayt. Sent these two individuals to the Jewish rabbis of Medina. So they highlighted their concerns about the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ and said that, tell us something that we can test this man by. That we can really find out if this man is truthful or this man, this individual is a liar. So they said, Saluhu an thalath. Ask him about three things. فَإِنْ أَخْبَرَكُمْ بِهِنَّ فَهُوَ نَبِي مُرْسَلٍ. Ask him about three things. If he answers them, then this person is a sent prophet from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَإِن لَمْ يَفْعَلْ فَرَجُلْ مُتَقَوِّلٍ. If he doesn't answer them, he's just a person who's going through hallucinations. Just statements that come into his mind. And he is full of falsehood, this individual, making up slanders and stories. سَلُوهُ عَنْ فِتْنَةٍ عَنْ فِتْيَةٍ. Ask him about the young boys ذَهَبُوا فِي الدَّهَرِ, who went away at a certain time in one of the previous locations. What happened previously? مَا كَانَ مِنْ أَمْرِهِمْ. What is the story about these young boys? فَإِنَّهُ قَدْ كَانَ لَهُمْ حَدِيثٌ عَجِيبٌ. Because indeed about them is a strange hadith, a strange story about these young men. Secondly, سَلُوهُ عَنْ رَجُلْ طَوَّافٍ بَلَغَ مَشَارِقَ الْأَرْضِ وَمَغَارِبِهَا. Ask him about this travelling individual who went to the east and went to the west. مَا كَانَ نَبَعُهُ. And what was the story about this individual who ruled or conquered or went all over the world. Thirdly, they said, ask him about وَسَلُوهُ عَنِ الرُّوحِ مَا هُوَ. Ask him about the spirit. What is the spirit? And then when they came back to the Prophet Muhammad, they wanted to now belittle him and ask him. They asked him these three questions. So he said, أُخْبِرُكُمْ صَلَّى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وسلم غَدًا عَمَّا سَأَلْتُمْ عَنْهُ. He said, I will tell you tomorrow the answers to these questions you asked me. Because obviously the Prophet did not know the answers directly. He had to wait for the revelation. وَلَمْ يَسْتَثْنَى. And he did not say, Insha'Allah. So that comes inside the surah as well. So he said, I'll tell you tomorrow the answer to these questions. And he did not say, Insha'Allah. And no revelation came for 15 days. So you can see now how the Quraysh were triumphant. Because they said that they asked him, the rabbi said, ask him about these three questions. If you cannot answer them, then this person is just making up stories. The Prophet Muhammad became hazeen, in a state of sadness and grief. And the Quraysh continuously kept on questioning him until then this surah was revealed. And in this surah you find two answers. The first two questions are answered in this surah. And the third question is answered inside Surah Al-Isra. So the first two questions that they asked, they ask you about, firstly you find before that what occurs is the etiquettes that occurs inside this surah, verse number 24, وَلَا تَقُولَنَّ لِشَيْءٍ إِنِّي فَاعِلٌ ذَلِكَ غَدًا إِلَّا إِنْ يَشَاءَ اللَّهِ. Never say I'm going to do something tomorrow, but always say Insha'Allah. So that's the first etiquette that the Qur'an is trying to highlight to the Prophet Muhammad and to us as well, that everything is by mashi'atullah, by the permission of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Then come the answers. Verse number 9 you find, أَمْ حَسِبْتَ أَنَّ أَصْحَابَ الْكَهْفِ وَالرَّقِيمِ كَانُوا مِنْ آيَاتِنَا عَجَبًا. Do you think that the companions of the caves and وَالرَّقِيم, we'll come to the meaning of Raqim. Some ulama go to the opinion of being a valley, the inscription of stones, the tablets, or whereby the story is written. مِنْ آيَاتِنَا عَجَبًا is some amongst one of our strange signs. And then the rest of the ayat, they continue talking about their story. And inshallah we're going to return back and go into that in further detail. Then verse number 83, وَيَسْأَلُونَكَ عَنْ ذِي الْقَرْنَيْنِ. They ask you about ذُو الْقَرْنَيْنِ, verse number 83. So that's the answer to the second question. And then the ayat, they continue talking about the life or the personality of Dhul Qarnayn. So then you find that the third question that they posed, to ask about the ruh, about the soul or about the spirit, that comes inside Surah Al-Isra, the 17th chapter, verse number 85. The surah that comes just before Surah Al-Kahf. وَيَسْأَلُونَكَ عَنِ الرُّوحِ. They ask you about the soul, about the spirit. قُلِ الرُّوحُ مِنْ أَمْرِ رَبِّي. Say, indeed, the soul or the spirit is from the command of my Lord Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then comes another etiquette, وَمَا أُوتِيتُم مِّنَ الْعِلْمِ إِلَّا قَلِيلًا. You've only been given a minute drop of knowledge. So once again, another etiquette, adab, that's been taught here as well. That the amount of knowledge that insan has been given is very minute. وَمَا أُوتِيتُم مِّنَ الْعِلْمِ إِلَّا قَلِيلًا, by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So in these 110 ayat that you find, what does this surah cover in these 110 ayat? When you find all these ayat, as Imam Al-Qurtubi highlights, that all of the ayat هي مكية, يعني في قول جميع المفسرين, that all of the 110 ayat are all Meccan ayat, because sometimes you find even in the Medinan surah, you find at times some ayat could have been possibly narrated in Mecca. And what you need to bear in mind is what is a Meccan surah and what is a Medinan surah. A Meccan surah is whatever was revealed before the Hijrah. It doesn't mean necessarily it was related in Mecca. It could be outside of Mecca. It could be another location. It could be another place that Prophet Muhammad was visiting or going to. But whatever was revealed before the Hijrah is classified as a Meccan surah. Whatever is revealed after the Hijrah is classified as a Medinan surah. And then even then you can find that certain ayat could have been revealed whilst the Prophet Muhammad was in Mecca himself. So sometimes you find when you read in books of tafsir, you could find that the ulama will write, or the mufassir will write, all of this surah is Medinan, illa hadhi al-ayat, here, Makkiyah. Or all of the surah is Meccan, except for these ayat, they are Medinan, ayat. And also you find other ulama written about, if you look at works of Ulum al-Quran, about the signs of the surahs which are Meccan and the signs of surahs which are Medinan. Meccan surahs in general talk about the oneness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, talk about Tawheed, talk about Yawm al-Qiyamah, gives you the madhar of the Akhirah, the concept of the Akhirah. The Medinan surahs talk about ahkam, about rulings, about regulations, about talaq, about nikah, about inheritance, about business transactions. It's the general theme of the Medinan surahs, and that is the general theme of the Meccan surahs. قال ابن عباس إنها مكية جميعها. Ibn Abbas radiallahu ta'ala anhu says all of the surah is a Meccan surah. Now the main topics that you find inside this surah are أولا أصحاب الكهف, يرحمك Allah, the boys, young boys in the cave. قصة الجنتين, the story of the two gardens. Thirdly, قصة آدم وإبليس, the story of Adam and Iblis. Fourthly, you find قصة موسى مع العبد الصالح, the story of Musa alayhi salam with the righteous person, Khidr. Fifthly, we find قصة ذي القرنين, the story of Dhul Qarnayn. And then sixth, we find Ya'juj wa Ma'juj, Gog and Magog. And these 6 main topics take up 71 verses out of the 110. So you're not left with many verses. So the main crux of the surah is discussing these 6 main topics. As I mentioned them again, if you missed them, Ashabul Kahf, the young boys in the cave. Qissatul Jannatain, the story of the two gardens. Qissatu Adam wa Iblis, the story of Adam and Iblis. Qissatu Musa, the story of Musa and Khidr. The Qissa, the story of Dhul Qarnayn, 5th, and 6thly, Ya'juj and Ma'juj. Even the remaining ayat that you find are all linked to the above, are somehow related to the above, or they link to Mashahidul Qiyamah, or linked to the affairs of the Akhirah, or the affairs of this world. So even those ayat are still quite strong, not going really off the topic and discussing another topic. Now what is the main theme or the topic linking the surah together, linking the verses together? And that's why many ulama, they talk about the science al-ilm rabtul ayat was sur, the science of linking verses together and linking various surahs together. And it's a very deep science that you find, because some ulama have gone to great lengths to talk about how one surah is linked to another surah, how one verse is linked to another verse. Even at times you don't really find the link is apparent, and some ulama have talked about it as being as a excessive knowledge of trying to link one verse to another verse. But sometimes the link is quite clear, and it is beneficial. And it's some knowledge that you find, ulama, they say it's like al-milh al-ta'am, it's like salt on food. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's the most important, but it gives it a good feeling, good taste. For example, the 20s, like some people go back to Ibn Abbas, the Surah Al-Qadr. If you go back to the surah itself, إِنَّا أَنزَلْنَاهُ فِي لَيْلَةِ الْقَدْرِ وَمَا أَدْرَاكَ مَا لَيْلَةُ الْقَدْرِ لَيْلَةُ الْقَدْرِ خَيْرٌ مِنْ أَلْفِ شَهْرٍ تَنَزَّلُ الْمَلَائِكَةُ وَالرُّوحُ فِيهَا. They go back to the word fiha in the pronoun. The pronoun in this surah is the 27th word. So take the opinion that it's the 27th night. So obviously that's just milh, that's just salt It's not, we don't take that and build the whole essence that it's the 27th night. Because that's what some people will do. They will use such knowledge and say, look, that's a sign. Or try, as you find the 19 hoax or heresy theory, that you find that everything goes back to the concept of 19. So this person, Rashad Khalifa, had to begin to interpret certain ayat of the Qur'an to fix into his theory. So ulama of Ahl Sunnah, their views that if something comes along and it just is highlighted, you just take it as a tertiary, even something as a fourth concept of knowledge. You don't base the whole of your knowledge upon that. When people say the Qur'an is a book of science, no, if something comes, it talks about science, then you take it. The Qur'an is not predominantly a book of science. Even it talks about the embryology system inside, وَقَدْ خَلَقَكُمْ أَطْوَارًا, we created you in stages. But look at some Muslims tend to use this verse in the Qur'an, we created you in stages, that this is talking about Charles Darwin's theory, that man was once an ape. Because that's what atwara means, in stages. But here it's talking about the stages in the womb of your mother. One of the ulama of Azhar Sharif, that was his view, based upon this verse. وَقَدْ خَلَقَكُمْ أَطْوَارًا, we created you in stages, that man was originally an ape. Darwin's theory. So obviously we don't link the Qur'an to science the way that some people have taken science, that the Qur'an is a book of science. But the main theme from the beginning to the end of the surah is tasheehul aqidah, is the rectification of one's belief. The surah begins with Alhamdulillahi alladhi anzala ala abdihi al-kitab wa lam yaj'al lahu iwaja. Praise be given to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who sent down upon his servant the book and found there's no crookedness inside this book. قَيِّمًا لِيُنذِرَ بَأْسًا شَدِيدًا مِنْ لَدُنْهُ وَيُبَشِّرَ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ الَّذِينَ يَعْمَلُونَ الصَّالِحَاتِ أَنَّ لَهُمْ أَجْرًا حَسَنًا مَاكِثِينَ فِيهِ أَبَدًا وَيُنذِرَ الَّذِينَ قَالُوا اتَّخَذَ اللَّهُ وَلَدًا. And to give a severe warning to those people who attribute a son to God. مَا لَهُمْ بِهِ مِنْ عِلْمٍ, they have no knowledge regarding this. وَلَا لِآبَائِهِمْ كَبُرَتْ كَلِمَةً تَخْرُجُ مِنْ أَفْوَاهِهِمْ إِنْ يَقُولُونَ إِلَّا كَذِبًا. Indeed, this is nothing but a lie that comes out of their mouths, which they attribute to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's the first 5 ayat that you find of Surah Al-Kahf. Then if you go and look at the end of the surah, likewise you find قُلْ إِنَّمَا أَنَا بَشَرٌ مِثْلُكُمْ, say, indeed I'm only a human being like you. يُوحَى إِلَيَّ أَنَّمَا إِلَهُكُمْ إِلَهٌ وَاحِدٌ. Revelation has been given to me that indeed your ilah, your deity, is only one God. فَمَنْ كَانَ يَرْجُو لِقَاءَ رَبِّهِ فَلْيَعْمَلْ عَمَلًا صَالِحًا وَلَا يُشْرِكْ بِعِبَادَةِ رَبِّهِ أَحَدًا. Once again, don't commit no shirk. So the surah begins with don't attribute anything to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala which you don't have knowledge about. And the end of the surah as well completes by don't commit any shirk with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And thus you find that this final verse, verse number 110, Ibn Kathir in his tafsir, he highlights that this is the verse which talks about the essence of any single action that you do in your life. He quotes this verse from Surah Al-Kahf. He says, أولا أن يكون خالصا, that you are sincere in the action that you do, and secondly, it is according to the sunnah of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So that's what you find, righteous actions, and the righteous actions are based upon the sunnah and the total sincerity that you find to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Likewise, Imam Baghawi in his tafsir, the verse, the beginning of Surah Al-Mulk, هو الذي خلق الحياة وَالَّذِي خَلَقَ الْمَوْتَ وَالْحَيَاةَ لِيَبْلُوَكُمْ أَيُّكُمْ أَحْسَنُ عَمَلًا, to see which of you is best in action. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala didn't say أَكْثَرُ عَمَلًا, who does the most action. Imam Baghawi highlights that أَحْسَنُ عَمَلًا مَا كَانَ أَحْسَنُهُ وَأَصْوَبَهُ, whatever is the best and pure, or accurate and pure. Accurate bima'na is according to the sunnah of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And pure meaning sincerely seeking the face of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And if you look through the whole of the surah, you'll find this contrast between at-tawheed and shirk. Because even the story about the men of the 2 gardens, who come to the story, you'll find that what is it entailing? That one feels that through my own power and my own ability and my own might, I've been given this garden to me, or it belongs to me. This is shirk. This arrogance that the person believes that they've been given this through their own power and their own ability. So throughout the Qur'an you find throughout the surah and even throughout the Qur'an you find this parallel of zawjain, the two pairs. That's the theme of the Quran. Bayn al-Bashiri wal-Nadhir, between giving glad tidings and warning humanity. That's the theme of the Quran throughout. That you always find the concept of pairs. Bayn al-Jannah wal-Nar, between paradise and hell. Bayn al-Kufri wal-Iman, between disbelief and Iman. Bayn al-Shirki wal-Tawheed wal-Batil wal-Haqq, between falsehood and truth. That is the way the theme of the Quran travels throughout the Quran. And then you find that the other main theme of the surah is obviously the story of the boys inside the cave, the story of the two men, or the story of the two gardens, and then the discussion about Al-Qiyamah. That's the general theme. Now some have made the following extraction, that there's four main prime stories inside this surah. The first story, as we mentioned, is Ashabul Kahf, the boys inside the cave. The second main story is Sahib Al-Jannatain, the man who had two gardens. The third story is Musa wal-Khidr, and the fourth story is Dhul Qarnayn. Because previously we mentioned, we talked about the 6 main topics, but these are the 4 main stories that the Quran in this surah talks about. Now, the story, each of these stories presents a fitna. So each of these stories presents a fitna that obviously that we can see something that can be related to us and to those individuals. The fitna of the young boys is fitna to deen, is being trialed inside your religion. The fitna of Sahibul Jannatain, the man with two gardens, is fitnatul mal wal walad, is the trial of having wealth and children and property. The fitna of Musa and Khidr is fitnatul ilm, is a fitna of knowledge, because Musa said that I'm the most knowledgeable individual. So knowledge can be a fitna for an individual as well. And then fourthly, we find of Dhul Qarnayn, what is the fitna here? Is fitna to sulta, the fitna of being in power, in being authority, of being dominant, of being in power, in controlling. That's what you find. For some people it goes to their mind, goes to their head. Hubbul kursi, love of the chair, love of position. People don't want to step down. These are the 4 fitan that you find, that we probably are surrounded by these 4 fitan as well. What is the ilaj? What is the cure that we extract for each of these 4 fitan that occurred in these stories, and that can occur upon any individual? Is awalan, the solution from the story of the young boys in the cave and the fitna of deen, is as-suhbatu salihah, is staying amongst righteous individuals, having good companions, friends who have a good deen, a good akhlaq, and a good character, to be surrounded by such individuals. The ilaj, the solution for a person who gets so engrossed in the world, and the fitna of mal, of property and children, is ma'rifatu haqiqatu dunya, is to study the essence, or the nature, or the knowledge of the reality of the world. The world has no value in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Thus you find many ayat, parables, amthal ba'd al-amthal in the Quran, talking about the dunya, the parable of the dunya in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Fitnatul ilm, or the story of Musa and Khidr, and you find the fitna of ilm is what? At-tawadu', is humbleness, humility, taking away arrogance. So that's what really ilm does to an individual. That a person is throughout, it makes him become humble. That's what knowledge should do, at-tawadu'. Then you find fitnatul sulta, the fitna of being in power, is al-ikhlas. The solution is sincerity. This is amana, this is a trust that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has placed upon an individual. You've been placed in a situation, you've been placed in authority. So a person needs to be sincere, that I've been trusted with this position. How am I going to carry out this position? And thus you find another extraction by some of the ulama of the Quran, that ad-Dajjal will come with exactly the same 4 fitan. So these 4 fitan that you find in these stories, you'll find ad-Dajjal will come with these 4 fitan as well. The fitna of fitnatud deen. So you find yatlub min an-nas ibadatuhu min dunillah. He will ask people to worship him besides Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because he's going to be claimed to be a god. When he has the fire, if you jump into the fire, thrown into fire, you've been thrown into paradise. So he's playing God. So that's fitna, that he's going to come with fitna to deen. Putting people into trial on that day. Secondly, you find yuftinu nas bima fi yadihi min amwal. He will trial people with the wealth and the property. He'll be given a mass amount of wealth and property will be given to Ad-Dajjal. And people fall into the traps of Ad-Dajjal. Thirdly, you find fitnatul ilm bima yukhbir bihi nas min akhbar. The fitna of knowledge as well, as regarding what people have been told about this individual. But still certain individuals will not take avail or take lesson from this knowledge. And then you find yusaytur ala ajza'i kabira min al-ard, and he will dominate amongst a large portion of the world. Ad-Dajjal will have dominance upon the land. So with that, we're going to now look at the concept of Ad-Dajjal according to the classic sources, and then afterwards we're going to return back to the story of the companions of the cave and focus on that's the main four things we're going to focus upon, inshallah, is the companions of the cave, Musa and Khidr, Dhul Qarnayn, and Ya'juj and Ma'juj. But before we enter into Ashabul Kahf, just look at Ad-Dajjal. Because obviously Ad-Dajjal, many people, they like to listen to the topic about Ad-Dajjal, and it inspires many people, and always people are interested about Ad-Dajjal and where he is, etc. But it may be an interesting topic. So many people, that's what the Islam has become for many individuals. They like to seek interesting topics. But wallahi, Islam, the more and more you read about Islam, it's not about, because sometimes, unfortunately, even many of us, we're traveling on that understanding of ilm as well. We become full of academia. It's just rhetoric, it's just speech, it's just facts, it's just figures, it's just a hadith. We should be mutasawwifun. We should be from the Sufiya. But what type of Sufi? A Sufi, faqih wa Sufi. A person who's a faqih, a jurist who understands the fiqh of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and a zahid, and a person who's abstinent from this world. Not a person who's just a Sufi and has no fiqh, ma عنده aql, ma عنده shay. That's what many of the Sufi at the moment, that's what unfortunately they are. They don't have no understanding of the deen, they just do whatever they fancy doing. But all of us should be like that. We should be zahideen fi dunya. But because it's all become academia, whether it be the study of aqa'id, of belief, of usul al-hadith, or usul al-tafsir, you just find at times this is ilm jaf at times. The ilm itself is not jaf, the ilm itself is not dry. We ourselves have become dry. Should be more of an implementation. That's why you find that people like Imam al-Nawawi, rahmatullah alayh, some scholars only write books that are for specialist people to go and read. Imam Nawawi, you find every single individual has his books at home. We don't even know that. Arba'in al-Nawawiyah, 40 ahadith of Imam Nawawi, or the 42 ahadith. Left behind what? For the awam. Riyadus Salihin. Study Riyadus Salihin, you find great fawaid. So many benefits inside the reading of Riyadus Salihin. Bab after bab. So we should sit at home, read it to our family, read it amongst brothers. You find many great benefits inside Riyadus Salihin. And mu'adhamul ahadith are authentic. The majority of the ahadith inside Riyadus Salihin are authentic. There may be a few odd number, as Father Rakhul Shaykh Nasir rahmatullah alayhi has taken them out or highlighted them. But in general, there's much fawaid and benefits. Kitabul Adhkar, book of dhikr, which Imam Nawawi left behind, which benefits people. So those are the real people that we should aspire to be like, that combine knowledge with action, with implementation, closeness. When people just begin to study these affairs of the unseen, it becomes just a happy subject, a good subject, to a scary subject, intriguing subject to go and listen about the hellfire, to listen about this, but it doesn't move you. You're still the same individual. The Quran begins by talking about the believers, الَّذِينَ يُؤْمِنُونَ بِالْغَيْبِ. We believe in the unseen. And the reason why I highlight this is because these same respected individuals, they've taken this modernistic Islam, in everything that they understand, they begin to twist it around. And wallahi, it will only be a matter of time that these affairs of the unseen, they will twist them around as well. It will only be a matter of time. Just like you make ta'wil interpretation of everything that's a sunnah, you reinterpret it. It will only be a matter of time that affairs of the unseen, whereby you find that clear things have been mentioned inside the text, and we're not going to shy away from it. There will be a final battle between al-haqqi wal-batil, between truth and falsehood. Even the Bible talks about the Armageddon, the final war between the allies of truth against the allies of falsehood. The Bible documented this as well. We're not trying to show any hatred towards any individuals, but this is a fact. So the same way that you interpret those things that you find don't fit into the Western society, you begin to reinterpret them. It would only be a matter of time that those clear sources which have been highlighted about certain events that will happen in the future, you will begin to reinterpret them as well. So we shouldn't just be studying these topics just to make ourselves feel good and just to learn about certain affairs of the unseen. Because this modernistic interpretation exists. Don't be surprised. Ad-Dajjal for some people is the television, with a satellite station. That's how some ulama have written that. They believe that the Ad-Dajjal is television. The shaitan is the television, and then came along his son, the video, then came along the grandson. The grandson came along, the DVD, and then the other grandson came along the satellite dish. All these systems, they believe it's Ad-Dajjal. Some ulama, or other people write about Dajjal, they say the actual system that we live in is Ad-Dajjal. The system itself is Ad-Dajjal. It's not an actual individual that will come. It's the system, which is the Antichrist. Some people say the New World Order, that's Ad-Dajjal. The New World Order that many people, they talk about, the coming of controlling the world, etc. That's Ad-Dajjal. Some people believe currency, money, wealth is Ad-Dajjal, because it's been spread everywhere. And some people believe the spread of evil is Ad-Dajjal. These are all modernistic views that exist about Ad-Dajjal, that some ulama have written and some intellectuals have written, what their beliefs are about Ad-Dajjal. But like I began with, we are simple people, and we follow the simple text. That the Dajjal is an individual, is an entity that will appear at the end of time. Amongst the famous interpreters who denied Ad-Dajjal is people like Muhammad Abdu. Obviously we mention these names not to belittle any of these individuals. Some of them may go against the views of Ahl Sunnah, etc. But it's just knowledge to have about certain famous individuals that existed. Muhammad Abdu, and you find a great revivalist that you find that people write about, and he rejected the concept of Dajjal, or we made ta'wil regarding Abu Ubayya as well. Ibn Hazm and Imam al-Tahawi began to reject his powers, as some ulama have highlighted. And Abu Ali al-Jubba'i, Shaykh Mu'tazila, Shaykh of the Mu'tazila, he rejected al-Dajjal. Rashid Rida fi tafsirihi as well, he also rejects al-Dajjal as well. As for the belief of Ahl Sunnah, that you find Al-Qadi Al-Iyad says, أنه شخص بعينه, he is an individual, a personality, as an individual. Ibn Kathir says, بل له حقيقة, rather this individual has a point of reality. امتحن الله بها عباده في آخر الزمن. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will test humanity via this individual. And likewise Al-Hafiz Ibn Hajar and Ibn al-Arabi, al-Maliki, the famous Andalusian scholar, endorses exactly the same belief as Ibn Kathir. Now some people, they cannot even handle the fitan that we're living in today, and they're talking about that they can handle the fitan, or the fitna of Ad-Dajjal. Small calamities come upon people. Oh, the non-Muslims are looking at me, I shouldn't go to the masjid, I shouldn't dress like a Muslim, I should do this, I should do that. Think about the greatest fitna. The greatest fitna, according to the words of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, La fitnata a'adam min fitnati Dajjal. There's going to be no greater fitna than the coming of a Dajjal. So all these are minor trials and tribulations. And it shows, wallahi, a lack of our iman. Because every time I read this hadith, the ones who have the strongest faith will be tested the most by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then underneath, and then underneath. Our toast gets burnt in the morning and our iman begins to waver. And we think we're going through trials and tribulations. You missed the bus, oh ya Allah, again. We should thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that we're not tested the way those people are tested, subhanAllah. لا يخرج الدجال حتى يذهل الناس عن ذكره. Dajjal will not come out until people begin to overlook or neglect him. وحتى تترك الأئمة ذكره على المنابر. And the ulama, the khutaba, the preachers begin to neglect mentioning him upon the manabir, upon the mimbar. Because the Prophet would endorse warning about the coming of Ad-Dajjal. And that possibly is common at the moment. People don't remind about the coming of Ad-Dajjal, and most people overlook or neglect the concept of Ad-Dajjal. Amma ta'rif Ad-Dajjal, what is the ta'rif, what is the understanding of Ad-Dajjal, or the name Ad-Dajjal? Lughatan, Dajjala means to deceive, to dupe, to cheat, to take in, to lie, to cover, to claim. فَهُوَ دَاجِل وَالدَّجَّال, that person is a trickster, is deceiving. So from here you can understand how, as we mentioned previously, how the Arabic names the linguistic meaning is always very similar to the technical meaning. For example, we mentioned as-salah bima'na du'a. As-salah linguistically means du'a. You need to raise your hands and to pray, to supplicate. And the actual salah itself is what? Nothing but a complete prayer beginning from the takbir ila taslim. Al-jam'u dajjalun. The plural of dajjal is dajjalun. Another plural that you find, which is the broken plural, is yani dajajila. Dajajila yani is another plural of, yani sometimes you find ulama will write annahum dajjalun, that they're dajjalun, they're liars, false imposters. As for the word dajajila, sounds like the word dajaja, chicken. Because many of them you read about these imposters, you find about their life, they are cowards in the way that they conduct themselves. Sumya bidhalik, why is this individual called yani the imposter or the false liar? Yudkhilul haqq bil batil, he mixes yani truth with falsehood, deceives someone. So sometimes a person could be even talking about a magician. Fahuwa dajjal, the person is a magician, he's a trickster, he's deceiving people. So dajjal, you see that when he comes out, he's going to try to deceive people that the truth is with him, or deceive people in thinking that this is actually paradise when it's actually the hell. That's why the name, the false impostor, has been given to him. Dajjalun yakun fi. So Imam Malik highlights Dajjajila, Malik ibn Anas, haulai Dajjajila. So even Malik ibn Anas used the word Dajjajila. Haulai Dajjajila, those people are false imposters. So that's a linguistic word that existed previously as well. Amma Dajjalun, the actual word you find in the hadith, yakun fi akhir zaman Dajjalun. In the end of time you will find Dajjalun, many false imposters. Inna bayna yaday as-sa'a dajjalin kadhabin fahdhuruhum. Indeed, before the coming of the hour, between myself and the coming of the hour, will be many false imposters. Imam al-Qurtubi fi al-Tadhkira said jama'a 10 wujuh lid-dajjal, has collected some 10 different derivatives from the word dajjal. Imam Qurtubi also highlights in it amongst from the ishtiqaq derivatives you find is he collects some 23 derivatives from the word dajjal, and Sahibul Qamus bases some 50 derivatives from the word dajjal. As for the word al-masih, because sometimes you find the word al-masih ad-dajjal. Al-masih tutlaq ala siddiq, and he goes upon the Siddiq, the truthful one, which was Masih, was who? Isa ibn Maryam. That he was the one, by the permission of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, healed the blind, the one suffering from the skin disease and gave life to the dead by the permission of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Wa al-Dillil al-Kadhab, and also al-Masih is also thrown upon the person who puts people to trial with the powers given. As we find here, you find the coming down of rain and plantation to grow. So it's both names, because al-Masih carries the meaning of, there's two understandings of Masih. One is Masih because of travelling extensively, from the word yamsahul ard, to travel across the land. And because Dajjal will actually travel across the land, he's been classified as Masih al-Dajjal. The other reason some of the ulama, or he'll travel through the land in 40 days, is لِأَنَّ إِحْدَى عَيْنَيْهِ مَمْسُوحًا, one of his eyes is wiped out, is smooth. So he's been given the title of Al-Masih, with the one single eye. So many have come, Ad-Dajjalun, we talk about a hadith that there will be 30 false imposters, and some ulama have collected works of listing them name by name. Amongst the contemporary ones that we find amongst Dajjalun is Mirza Ghulam Ahmad Qadiani, and he is the one amongst the false imposters, who claim to be a prophet. Likewise you find Elijah Muhammad, the leader of, or the founder of Nation of Islam. But the real Ad-Dajjal who will come, what are its or his characteristics and the descriptions as highlighted by the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam? Awsaf ad-Dajjal, the description of Dajjal that you find, as Imam Shawkani fi Tawdih has collected 100 ahadith describing ad-Dajjal and his fitna. So Imam Shawkani, the great Sheikh of Yemen, has collected this any benefit about the Dajjal. It is amongst the most greatest of fitan for the Muslim Ummah. Thus, we have not been left in darkness regarding the fitna of Dajjal. إني لأنذركموه وما من نبي إلا وقد أنذر قومه ولكني سأقول لكم فيه قولا لم يقله نبي لقومه إنه أعور وإن الله ليس بأعور. Indeed, every single prophet warned his people about Ad-Dajjal. But I'm going to give you some information about him that none of the other prophets have given before. And that information, إنه أعور, that he's blind in one eye, وإن الله ليس بأعور, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not blind. Al-Hadith ma rawahu Imam Bukhari. أعور العين اليمنى, his right eye will be blind, كأنها عنب صافية, as if it's a protruding grape that's popping out of the socket. So the person is claiming to be God, and then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ليس بأعور, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not blind. Some narrations talk about the left eye. Imam al-Qadi Iyad goes that both eyes are deformed, goes to the view that both of them are deformed of Ad-Dajjal. فإذا رجل جسيم أحمر, in a strong reddish individual, جعد الرأس أعور العين, and he blind in one eye, كأن عينه عنب طافية, as if it's a protruding grape which is coming out of his eye. Most of these works have been compiled into English. The book of Sheikh Nasiruddin Al-Albani rahmatullah alayh, to his Risala talking about Ad-Dajjal, which has been translated as well. ما بعث نبي إلا أنذر أمته الأعور الكذاب. There's no message that came except that he warned his people about this liar, this one-eyed blind liar. ألا إنه أعور, indeed he is blind. وإن ربكم ليس بأعور, indeed your Lord is not blind. وإن بين عينيه مكتوب كافر. الحديث ما رواه Imam Bukhari. يقرأ كل مسلم, and every single Muslim will be able to read that. So in the narration of Muslim you find Al-Haruf Kaf Fa Ra will be placed upon his forehead. Now the majority of explainers of this hadith go to opinion that the writing is to be taken literally. It will be literally on his head. Kaf Fa Ra will be placed upon his head. أن هذه الكتابة على ظاهرها وأن كتابتها كتابة حقيقية. And indeed this is a real writing that will be placed upon the individual's head. إنها majaz madhab da'if, as it's just a figurative speech, is a madhab which is weak. This has some ulama interpreted. There will be no actual clear sign. It says kafara, they twist the ahadith and reject these ahadith, but the most strongest opinion is that they will be placed upon him. Also, how can they read if people are illiterate? Once again, ulama have given a rebuttal about this. They highlight لأن ذلك الزمن تنخرق فيه العادات. That will be a time that the affairs will be changed, that everybody will be able to see the letters kaf, fa, ra, and be able to recognize this is kafir, this is a person who's a disbeliever. Other signs that you find, he will have twisted, cropped hair. أنه أقيم لا يولد له, the person will be barren, will be sterile, will not be able to have any children. And هل الدجال حي, is الدجال currently living? Because some people say that he will come out at the final stage, he will be created then. The ulama bring this famous hadith of Tamim al-Dari, and regarding Ibn al-Sayyad, which will prove his existence, that he is living. We'll come to that famous hadith of Tamim al-Dari. Where will he come from when he does return? Al-Makan huwa Khurasan, wa huwa min bilad al-Mashriq. He will come from the land of Khurasan, which is a country from the east, as narrated by Imam Ahmad in his Musnad. And likewise we mentioned towards the east, as we mentioned previously, that indeed this is the land of fitan, of trials and tribulations. Al-Buddha, the time span that the Dajjal will remain upon the earth. يخرج الدجال في أمتي فيمكث 40 لا أدري 40 يوما أو 40 شهرا أو 40 عاما. Ad-Dajjal will come out and he will reside amongst you for 40. The narrator says, I don't know whether it be 40 months, 40 days, 40 months, or 40 years. But what we do know is, Al-Yawm minha kasana. One day will be like 1 year. Al-Yawm minha kashahr. Another day will be like 1 month. Al-Yawm minha kal-Jum'ah. Another day will be like like Jum'ah or 1 week. ثُمَّ سَائِرْ أَيَّامِهِ كَأَيَّامِكُمْ هَذِهِ, and the rest of his days will be like your days. قالوا يا رسول الله كيف نصنع بالصلاة يومئذ. Look at the companions, what they're worried about. What will we do on that day? How are we going to pray? If one day is going to be like 1 year. If it was many of us, alhamdulillah. Just pray once in the morning and that's it, no need to pray. That's what many Muslims would do, in reality. It's like when some of our brothers from Jamaat al-Tabligh, that they mention this famous hadith, as authentic hadith, and obviously some hadith that they quote are unacceptable, but we mention this is authentic. When the Prophet went up to the night journey and he was given the gift of the prayer, and it was 50 prayers, and then he came down and Musa alayhi said, what did your Lord tell you? He said, you have to pray 50 times a day. He said, let go back to people, not be able to do that. Continuously going forth and back, etc., until it comes back to 5 prayers, and for each prayer you'll get 10 rewards given to you. So some of our brothers, they were out on tabligh and they're saying to the people, the shopkeepers, look, you should be thanking Allah that it was 50 prayers before. And look at these people. He goes, we wish it was 50 prayers, because at least you guys wouldn't come and disturb us. You'll be in the masjid all the time. So some people, for them, Islam is just becomes something trivial, just a joke. Just leave us alone. Just go and pray 50 times a day and leave us all alone. But the companions, it's a serious nature. That here you find this exception that one day will be like 1 year. Many of us think there's no need to carry on praying. He said, لا صلاة يوم نقدر. Should we pray once or should we estimate? قال بل تقدروا, but estimate the time span between each prayer. So if normally there's a gap of 4 to 5 hours, you have that gap and then you offer the next prayer and the next prayer. So they were worried about that. That's what you find in حافظوا على الصلوات والصلاة الوسطى وقوموا لله قانتين. Preserve your prayers, guard your prayers, especially the middle prayer. And the correct opinion about the middle prayer is Salatul Asr. As you find in the hadith, whoever misses Salatul Asr is as if they lost their family and all of their property, whatever they own. So Salah, is amazing, especially living in this country, especially in the West. Obviously, sometimes you could be in an environment where Salah is a norm and is acceptable. Sometimes working in the real world amongst these people, so many people, you feel sorry for them. They have to compromise on their prayers, etc. because the whole environment is not designed. Even the Muslim lands are corrupt. But wallahi, no one will stop you from praying. I've seen it with my own eyes. People not praying, you get up, you just start praying. They don't want to pray, so you can just sit there. You can't stop me from praying. But in this country, you have to continuously struggle to get your rights and your regulations. And then if you start praying, but you never used to pray before in your life. Now you're starting to pray. Because obviously many Muslims that came here, their asas was wrong. When they came here, many of the Muslims were not worried about establishing houses of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, about the prayer, etc. Whenever they could fit in prayer, they'll offer the prayer. That's why you find this weak mentality among some of the Muslims on the subcontinent, that we do, they call it qada. When I go home, I had many friends when I was growing up, and it was time for salah. I'm going to pray later on. What do you mean I'm going to pray later on? He said, I'm going to go home and pray dhuhr, especially winter, dhuhr, asr, maghrib and isha all together. And some of these people were imams of the masjid. Some of these people were hafidh of the Qur'an. So if that's their state, think about the awam, think about the general public. So intentionally they're missing their prayer and saying, but no, we can go home and offer the prayer. Some of the aqwal of the ulama shadid, some of them even go to the opinion, you even miss one prayer, don't quote me on this, but they say that you're a disbeliever. It's harsh words. But obviously you have to look at the bi'ah. People living in a Muslim land, if they stay away from the prayer, then the ulama are not hesitant to label them as non-Muslims. They're not hesitant. Because you hear the adhan, the khutbah remind you, the a'immah remind you, there's works, there's all advice is given to establish the prayer. But here we find that the prayer is something that's at times belittled by many individuals. They don't give its ahmiyah. Just because I don't have a beard, I shouldn't pray. La, why not? You go to Afghanistan, some of the guys are drug dealers, they still offer this salah. And you ask them, what are you doing here? They say, listen, my bad sins is my own fault. But I'm not going to lead the salah. I'm not going to commit any major disbelief by abandoning the prayer. And so many of us shouldn't think that I'm guilty, I shouldn't pray. La, that is your key of success throughout your life. And as you find inside the Qur'an, وَاسْتَعِينُوا بِالصَّبْرِ وَالصَّلَاةِ وَإِنَّهَا لَكَبِيرَةٌ إِلَّا عَلَى الْخَاشِعِينَ. Hold fast to the prayer. استعينوا بالصبر والصلاة, patience. وإنها لكبيرة إلا على الخاشعين. The prayer is only it's not difficult for people who have khushu'. They love to return back to salah. And that's what that should be the khuluq of every single Muslim, is hubbul masjid, love of the masjid, the house of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, hubbul jama'ah. Think that something has left you if you don't catch the jama'ah. That's why some of the ulama go to the opinion, even the opinion of the Hanafi fiqh, is salatul jama'ah is wajib, is an obligation. Person has to be there. But these are some of the aqwal that we should reflect upon in the stance of the companions. Khurujud Dajjal, where will the place where the Dajjal, when he will come out, Bainul Malhama, is between the Great War and Wafathul Medina, and the opening of Medina. Medina here means Constantinople. The opening of Constantinople in current day, Istanbul and all that area around it, Sitta Sinin, wa Khurujud Dajjal fi Sabi'ah. So you find the Great War that will take place, Al-Malhamatul Kubra, the opening of Constantinople, and then you will find in the 7th year will be the coming out of Ad-Dajjal, Al-Hadith Marwahu, Abu Dawood in his Sunan. إِنَّمَا يَخْرُجُ الدَّجَّالِ مِنْ غَضَبَةٍ يَغْضَبُهَا. He will come out because of something that will get him angry and make this individual come out. Other hadith talk about when knowledge is limited, ignorance is prevalent, and there's excessive drinking in the land, and Ad-Dajjal will come out. Then we come back to what we talked about is Makanud Dajjal, the place of Dajjal. As we mentioned, the hadith of Tamim ad-Dari. Tamim ad-Dari, as narrated by Fatima bint Qais, she narrates about talking about Tamim ad-Dari, that he says that whilst he was a Christian and was travelling on a ship, and the ship was tossed about for a month or so, and then they took a small rowing boat and landed on an island. When they got to this island, they met a beast with long thick hair, could not tell the front from the back. قال أنا الجساسة. He said that أنا جساسة. So they said that وما الجساسة, what is this جساسة? They said, go to this person in the monastery, and he's eager to meet you, and he will tell you about who I am. So we fled from him thinking it might have been a devil. So Tamim ad-Dari, remember this when he's a non-Muslim and he's narrating and he's become Muslim. So we went to the monastery, and in the monastery we found a well-built person there with his hands tied to his neck and iron shackles gripping his legs at the ankles. And he asked them certain things. He asked them about the date palms trees of Bayan, the lake of Tabariya. He asked them about the spring of Zuhr, and he asked them about the unlettered prophet. So he wanted to ask them certain things that were taking place, and then he highlighted to them, and shortly permission will be given to me to leave. Inni ana al-Masih, indeed I am the false Antichrist. And you find such wording in some narrations, ala innahu fi bahr al-Sham, indeed he's in the Syrian Sea, the Mediterranean Sea, or bahr al-Yaman, or in the Yemen Sea or the Arabian Sea, la bal min qibal al-Mashriq, or rather towards the east. As for atba'u ad-Dajjal, as for the people that will follow ad-Dajjal, yatba'u ad-Dajjal min Yahud Asbahan 70,000 عليهم طيالسة أو طيلسان. The followers of Dajjal will be 70,000 of the Jews of Asbahan, which is the area east to Medina, which possibly the current day the area of Iran, etc. Persian shawls, they'll be wearing a shawl-like garment, will be worn over their heads and shoulders. As you can see, that is amongst the characteristics of these individuals. وَمَعَ الدَّجَّالِ 70,000 عَلَيْهِمْ سِيجَانٍ فَأَكْثَرُ اتَّبَعُهُ الْيَهُودُ وَالنِّسَاءِ. You'll find that the majority of the followers of Dajjal will be al-Yahud وَالنِّسَاء, and women, because women are easily taken back by these signs that appear of trickery. Also other hadith point to al-Ajam, al-Turk, al-Arab, and you find فَلِيَنَّ الْجَهْلِ غَالِبْ عَلَيْهِمْ, because ignorance is prevalent over them. So sometimes when we say things about the Arab, people say, many times, I know personally, I've been lecturing in Arab, stand up and say, look, don't say that, don't say that. This hadith is stating فَلِيَنَّ الْجَهْلِ غَالِبْ عَلَيْهِمْ, because ignorance is prevalent amongst many of them. And that's why you can see that many of their lands, the state of them, who dominates and controls their lands and tells them what to do, because they think they're very intelligent, but they're not very intelligent, the mass amount of them, the understanding. Ad-Dajjal was shayateen. Dajjal will have with him shayateen, devils with him. وَيَأْتِي رَجُلْ قَدْ مَاتَ أَخُوهُ وَمَاتَ أَبُوهُ فَيَقُولُ أَرَأَيْتَ إِنْ أَحْيَيْتَ لَكَ أَبَاكَ وَأَحْيَيْتَ لَكَ أَخَاكَ أَلَسْتَ تَعْلَمْ أَنِّي رَبَّكَ فَيَقُولُ بَلَى فَيُمَثِّلُ له الشَّيَاطِينُ نَحْوَ أَبِيهِ وَنَحْوَ أَخِيهِ. الحديث ما رواه Imam Ahmad في مسنده. It will come to a man whose parents have passed away, or his brother has passed away, and his parents and father has passed away. He said, if I bring back to life your father and your brother, will you believe that I'm your Lord? فَيَقُولُوا بَلَى. He said, indeed, I do believe that you are my Lord. So indeed, two shaitans will take on the resemblance of his brother and his father, and showing that the shayateen, the devils, will be aiding ad-Dajjal as well. As for the fitan al-Dajjal, the fitan that this Dajjal will bring, as I mentioned, we think that we're living in troubled times. There will be no creation creating more trouble than ad-Dajjal, right from the creation of Adam until the last hour. Al-Hadith ma rawahu Imam Muslim. أعظم الفتن بسبب الخوارق العظيمة. He'll come with certain fitan that will change the natural creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, obviously by the permission of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, التي تبهر العقول, which literally means will blow the mind away. The things that this individual will come away will just take the mind away. One cannot perceive how this individual is doing such things. Amongst the signs that you find that the fitan is he will order the sky and it will begin to rain. He will order the ground and the earth will, the vegetation will begin to grow. He will walk through the desert and bring forth your treasures. He'll walk through the desert and bring out the treasures of the desert in front of you. He will split a young boy in half and walk through the two halves and then bring him back together again. He will have two rivers, a river of water and a river of fire, Nahran. جَنَّتُهُ نَارًا وَنَارُهُ جَنَّةً. The river, the river in the garden will be the fire, and the fire will be paradise. He will have a mountain of bread, and he will have a huge, great big donkey that will be given to him. So these are the great major signs that we're given to ad-Dajjal. However, we find for every disease there is a cure. Al-isti'adha min ad-Dajjal. Even though these great things that we're given to this individual, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has highlighted that there is a cure. As you find, أن رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم كان يعلمهم هذا الدعاء كما يعلم السورة من القرآن. He taught them this dua, just like he taught the companions surah from the Quran. في التشهد الآخر فليستعد بالله من أربع. Let the individual seek refuge from four. The wording is different in the way that they're presented. اللهم إني أعوذ بك من عذاب القبر وأعوذ بك من فتنة المسيح الدجال وأعوذ بك من فتنة المحيا والممات اللهم إني أعوذ بك من المأثم والمخرم. Like I said, some narrations have, for example, you find here ومن شر المسيح الدجال وأعوذ بك من فتنة الدجال ومن شر فتنة المسيح الدجال وأعوذ بك من فتنة المسيح الدجال. You find various wordings that you can go back to the words of a hadith, and whichever one is easy for us to memorize and to learn is totally acceptable, inshallah. Also, what else will protect the individual from Dajjal, as we began with, is 3 ayat of Surah Kahf, is narrated by Imam Tirmidhi. The beginning 10 ayat of Surah Kahf is narrated by Imam Muslim, and Imam Ibn Kathir goes to that opinion as well, rather than the final 10 ayat. Some highlight to be read when one goes to sleep, to recite these 10 ayat. And thus even some, as we mentioned, go to the whole of the surah based on the hadith, because of the surah's many benefits and topics that you find inside there. Other forms of protection that you find is at-tamassuk bil-Islam, to be a servant of Islam, holding fast to the teaching of Islam, and al-firaru min ad-Dajjal, and to flee away from Dajjal. As you find that don't hope to meet him, as we find in a hadith regarding the man who loses faith and falls into his deception. So a person shouldn't think, oh, I've got strong iman, I don't mind meeting at Dajjal. No, a person should flee away from him. Stay away from this individual. Where can an individual flee? That's what we might be thinking. Al-amakin allati la yadkhulaha ad-Dajjal. There are certain places Dajjal will not enter. And those places are, as we find, la yadkhul al-Madina رعب المسيح الدجال لها يومئذ 7 أبواب على كل باب ملكان. That day, the fear of al-Masih al-Dajjal will not enter into Medina. It has 7 entrances, and upon every single entrance there will be 2 angels guarding that area. ولا يقرب 4 مساجد. It will not enter 4 masajid. Masjid al-Haram, Masjid al-Haram, the Kaaba, Masjid al-Madinah, ومسجد الطور ومسجد الأقصى, narrated by Imam Ahmad in his Musnad. So obviously a person is living in that area, and as we know, the earthquakes will come and the hypocrites will be thrown out on that day, and how many there will be in number thrown out from the blessed area, and only the pure Muslims will remain there. Now you find a question may arise, some people talk about, as for the narrations which mention the Prophet Muhammad seeing him whilst making tawaf around the house. Because there's some narrations which talk about seeing ad-Dajjal whilst he was making the tawaf. Now, the ulama have highlighted about the seeing of the Dajjal, that the two views are given by Imam al-Nawawi, and likewise Ibn Hajar as well. First, that he's shown in a dream his appearance. So it's only a dream. That in a dream he's making the tawaf, so the Prophet Muhammad is making the tawaf, or he visualizes ad-Dajjal making a tawaf. Secondly, there's nothing preventing ad-Dajjal from entering Mecca and Medina, because that was not his initial, or his pure exiting of coming out as being ad-Dajjal. So if he was there in that area, he was not ad-Dajjal at that time. So he was allowed there. But once he declares himself to be ad-Dajjal, then it will be forbidden for him to come, in Akhir Zaman, the end of time, he will not be allowed to enter into the precincts of Mecca and Medina. And so those are the two interpretations of those hadith. As for a refutation of some of the ishkalat, some of the doubts that you find which are written about ad-Dajjal, some people say ad-Dajjal is not mentioned inside the Quran. There's no dhikr of Dajjal inside the Quran. That is true though. There is no dhikr of Dajjal inside the Quran, because some people say we only take from the Quran, we don't look at a hadith. However, the Quran indirectly does discuss him. It does discuss the concept of Dajjal. Firstly, you find why has he not been mentioned inside the Quran. Firstly, we find the first answer that we can give is because لأنه شر بطبعه, because he's an evil individual. There's no need to mention him. The essence of this individual is evil. Then they may highlight, then how comes Fir'aun is mentioned inside the Quran? He was an evil individual. Because Fir'aun he claimed lordship, and however that was for that specific region or for that specific time. But as for the indirect ayat, which will make it more clear, talking about ad-Dajjal, is if you look at Surah An-Nisa, the 4th chapter, verses 157 to 159. Indirect verses which talk about ad-Dajjal and talk about Isa ibn Maryam. So here you find that if you read these ayat, وَقَوْلِهِمْ إِنَّا قَتَلْنَا الْمَسِيحَ عِيسَى بْنَ مَرْيَمْ رَسُولَ اللَّهِ وَمَا قَتَلُوهُ وَمَا صَلَبُوهُ وَلَكِنْ شُبِّهَ لَهُمْ وَإِنَّ الَّذِينَ اخْتَلَفُوا فِيهِ لَفِي شَكٍّ مِّنْ مَا لَهُمْ بِهِ مِنْ عِلْمٍ إِلَّا اتِّبَاعُ الظَّنِّ وَمَا قَتَلُوهُ يَقِينًا بَلْ رَفَعَ اللَّهُ إِلَيْهِ وَكَانَ اللَّهُ عَزِيزًا حَكِيمًا وَإِن مِّنْ أَهْلِ الْكِتَابِ إِلَّا لَيُؤْمِنَنَّ بِهِ قَبْلَ مَوْتِهِ وَيَوْمَ الْقِيَامَةِ يَكُونُ عَلَيْهِمْ شَهِيدًا. So you read these verses talk about Isa ibn Maryam, they did not kill him, they did not crucify him, etc. The books of Tafsir offer the many ahadith talking about the role of Isa and his tasks when he returns, which is to break the cross, to kill the swine, and not take the jizya, and to kill the Antichrist. So indirectly, it's talking about that you did not crucify Isa ibn Maryam, but رَفَعَ اللَّهُ إِلَيْهِ, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala lifted him up, and he will return back, and you will have to إِلَّا لَيُؤْمِنَنَّ بِهِ قَبْلَ مَوْتِهِ, and you will believe in him before his death. So when he returns, what is the task of Isa ibn Maryam? Because Isa ibn Maryam, he is the only one that is going to kill ad-Dajjal. يَقْتُلُ عِبْنُ مَرْيَمْ ad-Dajjal بِبَابْ لُدْ. Isa ibn Maryam will kill ad-Dajjal in the door, in the area of Lud, as you find in the narration mentioned by Imam Ahmad in his Musnad. Lud is a city or area في فلسطين قرب Bayt al-Maqdis, or close to current day Ramallah International Airport. That is the area of Lud in today's language. Secondly, you find the second verse in the Quran, Surah Al-An'am, the 6th chapter of the Quran, verse 158. يَوْمَ يَأْتِي بَعْدُ آيَاتِ رَبِّكَ لَا يَنْفَعُ نَفْسًا إِيمَانُهَا لَمْ تَكُنْ آمَنَتْ مِنْ قَبْلِ أَوْ كَسَبَتْ فِي إِيمَانِهَا خَيْرًا. On that day will not benefit the individual, يَوْمَ يَأْتِي بَعْدُ آيَاتِ رَبِّكَ, when some of the signs of your Lord will come out. Talking about the major signs. Ulama of Tafsir highlight the major signs of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is ad-Dajjal. That once ad-Dajjal comes out, Iman will not benefit you if you have not already believed in him. Likewise, you find other ayat inside the Quran, the 40th chapter, verse number 57. Now there's one hadith which talks about Ibn Sayyad, that he is ad-Dajjal. Ibn Sayyad, the hadith narrated by Imam Bukhari. Ibn Sayyad, who was Safi, Qila Abdullah, Kana min Yahud al-Madina, Qila, from the Al-Ansar. And some of the companions took the view that he is ad-Dajjal, like Umar and Ibn Umar and Jabir and Abu Dhar. They said that this individual, Ibn Sayyad, is ad-Dajjal. And the clearest view is that he is not Ad-Dajjal. As we mentioned, Ad-Dajjal still has to appear. Because what happens, and you can understand why they began to have this understanding, is that when the Prophet Muhammad met him, he said to him, what can you see? And he said that I can see a throne on water. Trying to say this is the Arsh of Ar-Rahman, but we know that this is the throne of Iblis. So he met the Prophet and talked to him and expressed prophethood and revelation. So the Prophet Muhammad tested him. He was a young boy at that stage. And asked him a question. He had something in it, and he said to him, what am I concealing? What is it I'm concealing from you? If you know the unseen, tell me what I'm concealing. He said, Huwa ad-dukh. Huwa ad-dukh. Huwa ad-dukh. So he said, part of the verse referring to yani ad-dukhan, the smoke. Because you find, فَارْتَقِبْ يَوْمَ تَأْتِ السَّمَاءُ بِدُخَانٍ مُبِينٍ, on that day when the smoke will appear. Because the appearance of the smoke is one of the major signs of the Day of Judgment. And the Prophet Muhammad said, just leave him alone. Umar wanted to kill him. He said, you cannot, if he is Ad-Dajjal, and if he is not, there is no benefit in you killing him. And even Ibn Sayyad, towards the end of his life, he used to mention that these people think I'm Dajjal. As we began with Ad-Dajjal, who's Aqim, is barren, I've got children, I've got a family. So many individuals still thought that he was Ad-Dajjal himself. He says, I've got no miraculous signs or miraculous actions that I'm performing. So that was in short, a brief discussion about Ad-Dajjal, based upon various sources. ثلاثة ينتظرهم العالم, three that the world are waiting for, Al-Mahdi, the coming of the Mahdi, Al-Masih, the coming of return of Jesus, Isa ibn Maryam, Al-Masih, Ad-Dajjal, the false liar, the Antichrist. Likewise find Ashratu Sa'a, signs of the Day of Judgment by Shaykh Yusuf Al-Wabil, is a beneficial work as well. بارك الله فيكم سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك. Continuing the journey with the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, with the study of the Quran, and in specific Surah Kahf, that we highlighted in the beginning, in the Muqaddamah, and in the first introduction, that we want to take the science of the Quran and we want to advance upon the technical and the academic study that many of us that we offer towards many of the sciences, and try to bring about a practical application or implementation and imitation of the ayat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And you find the famous hadith as narrated by Aisha radiallahu ta'ala anha, كَانَ خُلُقُهُ الْقُرْآنِ, that his character was like the Qur'an, meaning that he stuck to the halal and abstained from the haram and adorned himself with every single character or characteristic that you find within the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sallallahu alayhi wasallam. And so we should take the wisdom of the Qur'an and combine that with the wisdom of the wise individuals, the ulama or the pious predecessors, because we find that in general the wise individuals are those who are at an elderly age. Thus you find some various narrations talking about that the age of wisdom is arba'una sana, is 40 years. Even in the Qur'an you find reference to that, حتى إذا بلغ 40 sana, until when man reaches the prime age of 40 years, he asks Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give him the tawfiq and ability to be grateful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and then to his parents. So all this highlights that the age of wisdom is ما فوق 40, whatever comes after the age of 40. And thus you find the age of revelation given to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was the age of 40. However, at times it can be the young who have wisdom as well. So it doesn't negate that young people cannot have wisdom as well. Even there's some narration that goes back to Umar, who talks about that foolishness, or if the word is, if it's possible to use in such an environment, stupidity, and it belongs to young individuals. That young individuals are always overzealous, and you'll find that amongst them. But on occasions we do find wisdom amongst the young, in the shabab or the fitya. And thus you find that what we'll come to in this surah, talking about these young individuals or the companions of the cave. But before that, you find inside the Quran, قَالُوا سَمِعْنَا فَتًى يَذْكُرُهُمْ يُقَالُ لَهُ Ibrahim. We heard of a young boy, يُقَالُ لَهُ Ibrahim, by the name of Ibrahim. So here's a reference of Ibrahim alayhi salam at a young age, and he abstaining from shirk and highlighting this incorrect belief that his people had, or his father had, in specific as well. Likewise, you find وَإِذْ قَالَ مُوسَى لِفَتَاهُ, when Musa said to his young companion, his comrade, as we'll come to that part of Yusha bin Nun, who is a comrade of Musa alayhi salam. Likewise, you find many of the Sahaba, many of the companions, a good mass of them were young. If you read through, many of them accepted Islam when they were at a young age. Now we want to take that burning passion of Iman and consolidate that with sound guidance. Because obviously you find that young people have this real passion and zeal, but at times they don't have that sound guidance or that ilm or that knowledge to strengthen it with. So the following ayat, beginning from verse number 9 from Surah Kahf, you find talking about these young individuals, talking about the companions of the cave. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم أم حسبت أن أصحاب الكهف والرقيم كانوا من آياتنا عجبا. Do you think that the companions of the cave والرقيم, we'll come to the meaning, what does الرقيم mean, كانوا من آياتنا عجبا, are from amongst our strange signs or amongst the strange affairs. Now the affair of the companions of the cave is indeed something strange, because it goes against the natural norm or pattern of life. However, for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that is not something strange. So the verse is talking about, do you perceive it as something strange of what happened to the young boys inside the cave? But for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it's not something strange. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can change the natural way of life, the natural fitrah, and turn it into something else. That is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Imam Mujahid highlights, among our signs are things that are amazing, that are more amazing than this. So we have many more amazing things than this, than the companions of the cave. لَيْسُوا بِأَعْجَبِ آيَاتِنَا. It's not the most strangest of signs, the young boys being inside the cave. There's much far greater signs that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has presented. Ibn Abbas said, what I have given to you of knowledge, the Sunnah and the book, is far better than the story of the people of Kahf and Ar-Raqim. That the Qur'an itself and the Sunnah itself entails far more strange signs or concepts inside there, or strengthening one's Iman. Muhammad ibn Ishaq said, it means I have not shown my creatures a proof more amazing than the story of the people of the cave and Ar-Raqim, as collected by Imam Al-Tabari. Now Al-Kahf, the word Al-Kahf that comes here, refers to a cave in a mountain. That's the meaning of Al-Kahf. A similar word could be the word Ghar. Ghar is also quite similar to the word Kahf. As for the word Ar-Raqim, because here you find, if you look carefully, you find Anna Ashab al-Kahfi war-Raqimi. What does the word Ar-Raqim mean? Here you find many different opinions by the ulama. Ibn Abbas said it is a valley, or it is the name of the valley. So the cave's name is Kahf, and the valley of the cave is called Ar-Raqim, what some of the Salaf have labelled it. Mujahid said it refers to their buildings. As we come to the building that was built upon them, Imam Mujahid said that Ar-Raqim is the actual building. Ka'ab said it was the name of the town or the village. Another statement going back to Ka'ab, it's the name of the mountain. The mountain itself is called Ar-Raqim. Sa'id ibn Jubayr said, it is a table of stone on which they wrote the story and placed it on the entrance of the cave. So Sa'id ibn Jubayr said that the actual Raqim, they wrote the story and they placed it outside the cave. That's what the meaning of Ar-Raqim is. As for the location of the cave, you find some ulama go to the opinion that somewhere in Turkey, in Andalus in Spain, some say near Philistine in Palestine, the area of Amman, Jordan. And some more views have been taken to the concept of Amman. Some people have discovered some area there and they try to highlight this is the place of Ashabul Kahf in Urdun. Another meaning of Ar-Raqim you find is Likitab or Bunyan, as we mentioned the name of the Sa'id ibn Jubair once again highlights is the name of the book or the name of the building. Another opinion is Ar-Raqim is the name of the dog, Al-Kalb. So do you think this, the story of the young boys, the companions of the cave, War-Raqim, and the dog is something strange? So that's another opinion, that the name of the dog is Ar-Raqim. Ibn Abbas highlights that Kullul Quran a'lamuhu. I know a large portion of the Quran, if not all of the Quran, except for 4. Amongst those 4 words, he doesn't know or locations or whatever the intended meaning is. Ghislin, Hananan, Al-Awa, and Ar-Raqim. So Ibn Abbas says, I don't know what Ar-Raqim means. What is the meaning of Ar-Raqim? Then we come to what happened to these young individuals. إذ أوى الفتية إلى الكهف فقالوا ربنا آتنا من لدنك رحمة وهيئ لنا من أمرنا رشدا. So you find that these young men, they fled from their people for the sake of their religion, fearing persecution. So because they feared persecution, they fled and they went to the cave. فقالوا ربنا آتنا من لدنك رحمة. O our Lord, bestow upon us your mercy. وهيئ لنا من أمرنا رشدا, and facilitate our affair for us. Now this running away from persecution, you find some points of wisdom that you find some ulama, or point of wisdom some ulama have highlighted, is look at the young people today. Young people in general are fleeing for or towards haram, not fleeing away from haram. Look at these young individuals, they're running away from the persecution and the harm in the society, and running away towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Some of the ulama tafsir highlight كانوا أبناء الملوك. These young boys were children or sons of the leaders, of the kings at that time. So just not any normal type of shabab, they were in a sound or a strong position. Or كانوا أهل شرفهم, or were amongst the family, the children of the most noble people of that area. So another extraction that we learn, that even amongst the rich or mala'ul qawm, the elite individuals, you can find that Islam could stem from them, that Islam could return back to them, and it would be more powerful than at times the masakeen, the poor individuals who submit themselves to Islam. So then they took the cave as a retreat. And the cave, if you find on many occasions, you find in the Sunnah and in the Quran, it plays a great significance in many of the ahadith. The famous hadith is collected by Imam Bukhari and Muslim, when 3 men, when there was excessive rain, and they decided to enter into the cave, and then the great big boulder, the great big rock came and it sealed them, and they were trapped inside the cave. And so each one of them made his supplication, doing an action that they highlighted that they done sincerely for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The first one, if we recall, whereby his parents, he would always offer them the milk, and one day he came back late, and then they fell asleep, and he stood there waiting until they awoke, and then he gave them the milk, then he went back and gave it to his family, and then he rested, and he said, Ya Allah, I done that only seeking your pleasure all alone. The second one being that the person he loved, Bintu Ammi, he loved the daughter of his uncle, his first cousin, and he wanted to commit an evil action with her, and she refused until one day she needed some wealth from him. And then he said, I will give you the wealth providing that you let me commit this evil action. And then when he's about to commit this evil action, that she tells him to fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and then he retracts himself, and he says, Ya Allah, there was no one between us in doing this action, but the fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala came upon me, and so then the boulder moved slightly more. Then the third individual was the worker who came, and the man didn't pay him his wealth. He left, and his wealth accumulated more and more, till eventually it became a mass amount, and the man came back and he asked for his due right, and he said, whatever you find is all yours. And the man said, look, are you trying to mock me and trying to belittle me? He said, no, it's all yours, this is all your wealth that's generated more and more. And the man took all of his wealth. He said, Ya Allah, you know that I done that only seeking your pleasure alone, and the rock moved and all 3 of them came out. Second occasion you find the time of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, whereby the use of the cave, Abu Bakr and the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. If you look in Surah Tawbah, the 9th chapter, verse number 40, إِذْ هُمَا فِي الْغَارِ إِذْ يَقُولُ لِصَاحِبِهِ لَا تَحْزَنْ إِنَّ اللَّهَ مَعَنَا. If you find that both of them are inside the cave, and he says to his companion, لَا تَحْزَنْ إِنَّ اللَّهَ مَعَنَا, don't fear, don't grieve, Indeed, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is with us. This verse inside Surah At-Tawbah, the 9th chapter, verse number 40, is a refutation of the Shia as well. Because obviously we post them who was inside the cave with the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Because we know that amongst Ghulat Shia, the extreme Shia at the moment, which we classify as a Rawafid, the Rafida, is part of their belief to make takfir upon Abu Bakr and Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhuma. So this verse is quite clear linguistically and technically, and according to points of tafsir as well, that it refers to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and Abu Bakr together being inside the cave. Idhuma, and when both of them, fil ghar, they're both inside the cave, and he says to his companion, don't fear, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is with us. Then once inside the cave you find, they make this supplication, رَبَّنَا آتِنَا مِن لَدُنْكَ رَحْمَةً وَهَيِّئْ لَنَا مِنْ أَمْرِنَا رَشَدًا. And give us your mercy and conceal us from our people. Meaning that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we've come into this location, you're the only one subhanahu wa ta'ala that can protect us from the people and direct our matter well, that is, grant us a good end. So we're going through this calamity, there's only one way to turn, is to turn back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. As you find in the Quran, فَفِرُّوا إِلَى اللَّهِ, that flee back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When calamities come, there's nowhere to flee, except for to flee back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because many people think that when hardship comes up, we should flee away from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Rather, one should be fleeing more and more closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Thus you find this hadith collected in the Musnad of Imam Ahmad, وَمَا قَضَيْتَ لَنَا مِنْ قَضَاءٍ فَاجْعَلْ عَاقِبَتَهُ رَشَدًا. Whatever you've decreed upon us, then make the end of it a form of guidance and a form of goodness for us. So whatever the calamity that could be, whatever is decreed upon the individual. Then you find verse number 11, فَضَرَبْنَا عَلَى آذَانِهِمْ فِي الْكَهْفِ سِنِينَ عَدَدًا. Then we covered up, فَضَرَبْنَا عَلَى آذَانِهِمْ, we covered up the hearing, the faculty of hearing. Now here you find many times the Arabic language is a deep language, it's a rich language. It gives you these parables, it gives you these similes, these similarities. And obviously here we covered the hearing means that we made them fall asleep. فَضَرَبْنَا عَلَى آذَانِهِمْ. The faculty of hearing was taken away, meaning that they were dropped into a deep sleep. فِي الْكَهْفِ سِنِينَ عَدَدًا, which caused them to sleep for many years. ثُمَّ بَعَثْنَاهُمْ لِنَعْلَمَ أَيُّ الْحِزْبَيْنِ أَحْصَى لِمَا لَبِثُوا أَمَدًا. Then we raised them up that we might test which of the two parties was best at calculating the time period they tarried, they stayed inside the cave. So remember, we mentioned the whole of this story is just a concept of Tawheed. Obviously we studied academically what does Tawheed mean. Here you're going to find the whole symbol of Tawheed throughout the journey of these young individuals, and as we mentioned throughout this surah. Then comes in verse number 13, the main part of the story. نَحْنُ نَقُصُّ عَلَيْكَ نَبَأَهُمْ بِالْحَقِّ. Indeed, we're going to narrate to you the story in truthfulness, in accuracy. إِنَّهُمْ فِتْيَةٌ آمَنُوا بِرَبِّهِمْ وَزِدْنَاهُمْ هُدًى. Indeed, they were young men who believed in their Lord, وَزِدْنَاهُمْ هُدًى, and we increased them in guidance. Now their story was recorded in the previous books. And the evidence for that is what we began with when the two companions, or the two companions of the Quraysh, went to Medina to ask the rabbis, when they said to him, ask the Prophet Muhammad salluhu an thalatha, ask him about these three things. I remember one of the questions was, ask about the young boys that happened previously. So here you find that this story of these individuals has been documented by the previous scriptures. It did exist. We were well versed who these young individuals, these young boys were. Now what led them to flee away from their people, as some of the works of Tafsir have highlighted, is on a yearly basis they will have this annual festival, this festival of kufr and shirk that you find, and it was imposed upon them that they had to attend. And this ruling was placed by some of the ulama have collected, or mu'arrikhun, historians, by Malik Daqyus. Malik Daqyus, Latin is Decanus, D-E-C-I-A-N-U-S. And so when they went there, they began to withdraw one by one. So they went, and then they began to just, all of them one by one, managed to leave this area. Obviously these are just some of the views of works of tafsir. I mean, a person could accept it, a person could reject it, But it just gives you the whole understanding of the story. Because the natural fitrah pushed them away, created this repulsion or created this hatred to be in the place of kufr and shirk. And that's the normal fitrah. Fitrat Allahi fatara an-nasa alayha. That should be the natural fitrah of the human being, that when they see something repulsive, something evil, they don't feel comfortable inside that environment and they need to leave. So these individuals had that yearning, that feeling, and then they left. Thus their Lord increased them in guidance. وَزِدْنَاهُمْ هُدَى. And then we increased them in guidance. Some of the ulama said that huda bima'na ikhlasan. We increased them in sincerity. So they were sincere to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bestowed even more sincerity within their hearts. Thus you find many ayat inside the Quran talking about this concept of increasing believers with guidance. وَالَّذِينَ اهْتَدَوْا زَادَهُمْ هُدَى وَآتَاهُمْ تَقْوَاهُمْ. Those people, those individuals who وَالَّذِينَ اهْتَدَوْا who seek the guidance, زَادَهُمْ هُدَى, we increase them in guidance. وَآتَاهُمْ تَقْوَاهُمْ, then we give them, bestow upon them, taqwa, the consciousness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. فَأَمَّا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا فَزَادَتْهُمْ إِيمَانًا وَهُمْ يَسْتَبْشِرُونَ. As for those people who believe, then we increase them in iman, وَهُمْ يَسْتَبْشِرُونَ, and then they rejoice. So this person seeks iman, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala increases that iman, till eventually the person begins to rejoice in that iman. In Surah At-Tawbah, the 9th chapter, verse number 124. لِيَزْدَادُوا إِيمَانًا مَعَ إِيمَانِهِمْ, that they may increase their iman with even more iman. So likewise you find in the end of Surah Al-Ankabut, وَالَّذِينَ جَاهَدُوا فِينَا لَنَهْدِيَنَّهُمْ سُبُلُنَا. Whoever strives in our paths, then we will show them our paths. So the whole concept here that these individuals, they were striving, they strove, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala increased guidance upon these individuals and made them firm. As you find another verse in the Quran, يَا أَيُّهَا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا إِن تَنْصُرُوا اللَّهَ يَنْصُرْكُمْ وَيُثَبِّتْ أَقْدَامَكُمْ. Or you believe if you give victory or give aid to the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He will aid you. وَيُثَبِّتْ أَقْدَامَكُمْ, and He will make firm your standing or your feet on the ground. And thus you find what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions about these individuals in verse number 14, وَرَبَطْنَا عَلَىٰ قُلُوبِهِمْ. And we did strengthen their hearts. Because literally, rabt means to tie together. That we did tighten their hearts in the sense of strengthening their iman. إِذْ قَامُوا فَقَالُوا رَبُّنَا رَبُّ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ. When they stood up and they said to these people, indeed our Lord is the Lord of the heavens and the earth. لَن نَدْعُوَ مِن دُونِهِ إِلَهًا. We're not going to call upon any other ilah, deity. لَقَدْ قُلْنَا إِذًا شَطَطًا. And if we did utter anything against Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, this would be something enormous, a concept of great disbelief. And shatata carries the meaning of kadhiba, a great lie, a blasphemy against Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And you find the concept of saying kadhiba, uttering lies to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, is the way of the foolish. As you find in the Quran, if you look at Surah Al-Jinn, وَأَنَّهُ كَانَ يَقُولُ سَفِيهُنَا عَلَى اللَّهِ شَطَطًا. Only the foolish ones are those who attribute lies to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Likewise in the second juz you find, Surah Al-Baqarah, you find, سَيَقُولُ السُّفَهَاءُ مِنَ النَّاسِ. The foolish ones will talk about why these people turn away from the direction of the Kaaba. So for many people, deen just becomes play for certain individuals. Whenever you highlight something about the deen, they always criticize it or belittle the deen. And this is the way of the sufaha, the foolish individuals. They don't seem to comprehend the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the strengthening of their hearts and these individuals being brought together is what brings the prophets together and what brings us together. This concept of iman. And thus you find this famous hadith collected in the Sahih of Imam Muslim, Al-arwahu junudun mujannadatun, fama ta'arafa minha talafa, wama tanakara minha ikhtalafa. Souls are like the recruited soldiers of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And whichever amongst them they get to know one another, it talafat, and you find a strong bonding between these individuals on the basis of iman. وَمَا تَنَاكَرًا, wherever there's differences or some form of possible misunderstanding and hatred, اختلفت, then you find difference. So if the basis is iman, then you find that hearts will come together automatically themselves. If people have the same vision of the same aqa'id, the same belief and the same love of the sunnah, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will put things together. Because most people, they think it's just gather the masses and we'll all be one understanding. Look, it's not all about just gathering the masses. It's all about people working towards the same vision, the same belief, the same sunnah, same concept, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will place His blessings upon that. Thus you find even inside the Qur'an, وَأَلَّفَ بَيْنَ قُلُوبِهِمْ. He is the one that made love and respect and dignity and placed that understanding inside their hearts. لَوْ أَنفَقْتَ مَا فِي الْأَرْضِ جَمِيعًا. If you used to spend everything in the heavens, or everything upon the earth, to bring these people together, مَا أَلَّفْتَ بَيْنَ قُلُوبِهِمْ. You would not bring their hearts together. So mass gatherings, wealth, possessions, whatever it may be, doesn't bring any human beings together. وَلَكِنَّ اللَّهَ أَلَّفَ بَيْنَهُمْ إِنَّهُ عَزِيزٌ حَكِيمٌ. But indeed it was Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that brought their hearts together. He is the Almighty, the All-Wise. So that's many of us fail to understand that concept, that we think that it's other concepts that will bring people together. Person should carry on with the task of preaching the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to bring humanity back to one basic understanding. And thus you find that these individuals, they became brothers in faith, and they adopted a particular location and they began to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So they came together, is what brought them all together, and they began to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And as we mentioned, that some of the ulama said that they said these words in front of the king. So they said this in front of him. فَقَالُوا رَبُّنَا رَبُّ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ. Our Lord is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the creator of the heavens and the earth. هؤلاء قومون اتخذوا من دونه آلهة لولا يأتون عليهم بسلطان بين فمن أظلم ممن افترى على الله كذبا. So they highlighted our people, they are the ones that began to worship others besides Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Why did they not bring for them a clear authority? Who does more than wrong than invents a lie against Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? So they're telling them, bring your evidences that there are other deities besides Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So the king gave them some time to reflect, to return back, gave them the opportunity. So he didn't punish them straight away. So he thought maybe they're young individuals, give them some time to reflect and to think, and then they'll return back to our understanding of the deen. However, you find that the Qur'an mentions وَإِذِ اِتَّزَلْتُمُوهُمْ وَمَا يَعْبُدُونَ إِلَّا اللَّهِ فَأْبُوا إِلَى الْكَهْفِ يَنْشُرْ لَكُمْ رَبُّكُمْ مِنْ رَحْمَتِهِ وَيُهَيِّئْ لَكُمْ مِنْ أَمْرِكُمْ مِرْفَقًا. When you withdrew from them and that which they worshipped except Allah, then seek refuge in the cave, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will make easy for you your affair. So rather than go back and return back to the deen, they thought the only thing that we can do is we could be punished by this king. Is the best thing to do is to leave, make hijrah, to go away from this individual and from these people. And then you find that they entered into the cave. When they entered into the cave, you find, and they rested inside the cave, وَتَرَى الشَّمْسَ إِذَا طَلَعَتْ تَزَاوَرُ عَنْ كَأْفِهِمْ ذَاتَ الْيَمِينِ وَإِذَا خَرَبَتْ تَقْرِضُهُمْ ذَاتَ الشِّمَالِ وَهُمْ فِي فَجْوَةٍ مِّنْ ذَلِكَ مِنْ آيَاتِ اللَّهِ مَنْ يَهْدِ اللَّهُ فَهُوَ الْمُهْتَدِي وَمَنْ يُضْلِلْ فَلَنْ تَجِدَ لَهُ وَلِيًّا مُرْشِدًا. Verse number 17. You find that the sun, when it would rise, when it rose, تَزَاوَرُوا عَنْ كَأْفِهِمْ, then it would decline, according to the other side. وَإِذَا غَرَبَتْ تَقْرِضُهُمْ ذَاتَ الشِّمَالِ. Then it would set, and they would be turning away towards the other side. Meaning that the sun did not burn them, but rather kept them alive. Because if the sun was to shine directly upon them, then obviously it would be a form of destruction upon these individuals. Once again, some of the ulama in tafsir, they talk about the entrance to the cave faced north. So it would shine on them, and then it would leave them. Obviously you can go and read further in this technical study of the way the sun was rising, the way it was going down. As for the location of the cave, where was the location of the cave? However, some of the ulama tafsir, they just highlighted this famous hadith of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, مَا تَرَكْتُ شَيْئًا يُقَرِّبُكُمْ إِلَى الْجَنَّةِ وَيُبَاعِدُكُمْ مِنَ النَّارِ إِلَّا وَقَدْ أَعْلَمْتُكُمْ بِهِ. There's not anything which will bring you closer to paradise and take you further away from the hellfire except I have told you about it. So the location of the cave isn't a big issue for the Muslim. Where is the exact type of cave, etc., is not something beneficial. Because if it's something that brings you closer to paradise, the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ would have highlighted this to the believers. Then you find وَتَحْسَبُهُمْ أَيْقَاظًا وَهُمْ رُقُودٌ. You think that they are awake, وَهُمْ رُقُودٌ, but they are in a deep sleep. وَنُقَلِّبُهُمْ ذَاتَ الْيَمِينِ وَذَاتَ الشِّمَالِ, and we turn them over to the right and we turn them over to the left. وَكَلْبُهُمْ بَاسِطٌ ذِرَاعِيهِ بِالْوَصِيدِ, and their dog is lying outside of the cave stretching out his paws or his legs. لَوْ اطَّلَعْتَ عَلَيْهِمْ لَوَلَّيْتَ مِنْهُمْ فِرَارًا وَلَمُلِئْتَ مِنْهُمْ رُعْبًا. And if you used to see them, and you would have been full of fear when you visualize such a sight. These young boys just lying there asleep inside the cave and the dog lying outside. It would have been something fearful if you visualize this sign. Now you find once again, ulama tafsir, they highlight that their eyelids did not close, lest disintegration took hold of them. Better for the sake of preservation. So obviously that's why a person would feel scared when they saw these young boys, that their eyelids were open, but they were in a deep sleep. يعني تحسبهم أيقاظا وهم رقود. You think they're awake, but they are in a deep sleep. Other ulama talk about the way a wolf sleeps, that it opens one eye and it closes the other eye, then it switches over. So these young boys were sleeping in that manner as well, that they would continuously switch their eyes. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would turn them over every so often. Some of the ulama of tafsir, they highlight that كَانُوا يُقَلِّبُهُمْ فِي كُلِّ عَامٍ مَرَّةً, that every year they would turn over once. فِي كُلِّ عَامٍ مَرَّتَيْنِ, every year twice. The reason for that the earth will not eat away their flesh. Because obviously the task of the earth is to take whatever is upon it, to take it down into the ground. So if there's movement, it will not disintegrate. So that's one of the wisdoms why they would turn around from the right and turn to the left, from the left turn over to the right. As for the dog, Ismul Kalb, we mentioned one opinion was Ar-Raqib. Once again, all this excessive knowledge that you find, which the ulama talk about Israeliyat, the Israelite traditions, talking about the name of the dog, the breed of the dog, the color of the dog, etc. But just to lighten the atmosphere, we'll mention what some of them have written. Doesn't mean that we believe in this or we're promoting these views, but just whilst going through it, we came across, they said the dog's name was Qitumur or Qitumir. Some of them even claimed that it wasn't a dog, it was a lion that was with them. The pet was a lion. The color of it was ahmar, and he was red, or it was a yellow color dog that they had with them. But all this Israeliyat, as we mentioned, there's no real benefit in knowing the breed of the dog, the color of the dog. But sometimes when you're reading it, it does, like I mentioned, it does alleviate the reading, because sometimes it tends to be too much of a technical, and sometimes at least you can sit there and you can laugh when you read something like that. As long as you don't take that knowledge and promote that knowledge amongst any individuals. Then you find that the dog was outside. Once again, look at the hikmah, look how the ulama dissect this knowledge. They said because the angels do not enter a house where there's a dog. So even that stage, even though it was a cave, you still find the dog was lying outside. Another benefit you find is that if a dog accompanying good people gains fame and stature in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then think about a human being with the salihin, with the righteous people. Because literally what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is doing is praising this dog. Because the mention of the dog is a form of praise. And obviously, linguistically, there's no such value to the dog, but that's the lesson that we can learn. That the dog being with the young boys gets praised or gets mentioned inside the Qur'an. So imagine if as human beings that we try to stay with the righteous people, it would be the benefit, yarhamukallah. وَكَذَلِكَ بَعَثْنَاهُمْ لِيَتَسَاءَلُوا بَيْنَهُمْ قَالَ قَائِلٌ مِّنْهُمْ كَمْ لَبِثْتُمْ قَالُوا لَبِثْنَا يَوْمًا أَوْ بَعْضَ يَوْمٍ قَالُوا رَبُّكُمْ أَعْلَمُ بِمَا لَبِثْتُمْ فَابْعَثُوا أَحَدَكُمْ بِوَرَقِكُمْ هَذِهِ إِلَى الْمَدِينَةِ فَلْيَنْظُرْ أَيُّهَا أَزْكَى طَعَامًا فَلْيَأْتِكُمْ بِرِزْقٍ مِّنْهُ وَلْيَتَلَطَّفْ وَلَا يُشْعِرَنَّ بِكُمْ أَحَدًا. And then you find that when they awoke and they began to discuss amongst each other, how long have we been sleeping for? Has it been a day, part of a day, half a day? قَالُوا رَبُّكُمْ أَعْلَمُ بِمَا لَبِثْتُمْ. They said, our Lord knows how long we've been residing in this area. So one of them says, فَبَعَثُوا أَحَدَكُمْ بِوَرَقِكُمْ هَذِهِ. That one of you take this money, that's what meaning of waraqa here is, take this money, take this coin, and go to the city. And go and see, فَلْيَنْظُرْ أَيُّهَا أَزْكَى طَعَامًا. What is the pure, good food? not like many of us, junk food, and let him come with a good provision. And make sure that nobody spots you whilst you're making this journey there. وَلْيَتَلَطَّفْ وَلَا يُشْعِرَنَّ بِكُمْ أَحَدًا. And let no one perceive you entering into the city and leaving the city in gaining some food for us. And let him be careful and let no man know any about you. So they entered in the morning and they woke up at the end of the day. That's what some of the ulama talked about. They entered in the morning and they woke up at the end of the day. Now what was more important for these individuals after ibadah was the need for food and drink. Because to make good ibadah, you need to have good food. Because that's how you to sustain yourself to perform ibadah and perform good actions. When people think that to eat and drink, there's no need to eat and drink and just perform ibadah, you're only harming yourself. La darar wa la dirar. There's no harm upon oneself and causing harm upon other individuals. Especially to take that which will benefit them and strengthen them in their form of ibadah. And thus you find that this is the way of the Anbiya. The Quran talks about Ya ayyuhar rusulu kulu min at-tayyibati wa'malu salihah. O messengers, eat from the good foods and then wa'malu salihah, and then do righteous actions. That's the way of the messengers. Eat good food, wholesome, pure, healthy food, wa'malu salihah, and carry out righteous actions. And be cautious of what you buy and be cautious on your way there and back when you return. Because إِنَّهُمْ إِن يَظْهَرُوا عَلَيْكُمْ يَرْجُمُوكُمْ. If these people, they discover you or get to know you, يَرْجُمُوكُمْ, they will stone you. أَوْ يُعِيدُوكُمْ فِي مِلَّتِهِمْ وَلَن تُفْلِحُوا إِذًا أَبَدًا. Or they'll return you back to their way of life and you will never ever be successful. That they may force you even to commit apostasy, and if you apostate, there will be no benefit in this world, and in the hereafter as well, there will be no benefit for that individual. Rather, the individual will be exposed, both in the dunya and in the akhirah as well. And thus comes the opposite as well, that likewise good people need to be exposed in the world as well. So many times people think that how comes always the bad people get exposed? There will be times that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will expose the good people as well. And this is a prime example of these young boys, because if you look at the following verse, وَكَذَلِكَ أَعْثَرْنَا عَلَيْهِمْ لِيَعْلَمُوا أَنَّ وَعْدَ اللَّهِ حَقٌّ. And we made the case to be known, and the promise of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is true. وَأَنَّ السَّاعَةَ لَا رَيْبَ فِيهَا. And the hour, or the coming of the hour, there is no doubt about it. إِذْ يَتَنَازَعُونَ بَيْنَهُمْ أَمْرَهُمْ. And they begin to dispute about the affair of these individuals. فَقَالُوا ابْنُوا عَلَيْهِمْ بُنْيَانًا. Build a building over them. رَبُّهُمْ أَعْلَمُ بِهِمْ قَالَ الَّذِينَ غَلَبُوا عَلَى أَمْرِهِمْ لَنَتَّخِذَنَّ عَلَيْهِمْ مَسْجِدًا. That indeed, those who had more control, they said, we are going to place a building, a masjid over them. A place of remembrance for these individuals. So later, these young boys became well known. And their story was known, but they were not discovered at that time. At a later stage, the praise was given to these individuals. And you find at the time of the resurrection, the people were disputing about how one would be resurrected. That's what the people were arguing about at that stage as well. Is the individual going to be resurrected by just their ruh, by their soul? Or would it be with the ruh wal jasad jami'an? Would it be with the soul and the body together? And thus you find Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to remove away that dispute that was taking place, He resurrected, brought forth these young boys once again in front of them. So remember, it's possible that centuries have passed since they've slept, as we'll come to the time span, and now they're living in a time of Malik Daqyus. So they were living in the time of Malik Daqyus, and now then they begin to live in the time of a Muslim king. So they died, or they went to sleep at the time, or lived in the time period of the non-Muslim king, and then they awoke at the time when a Muslim ruler was there in place. And thus you find, if you continue reading the story about the coin, that take one of you this coin and go to the city place, you find that when they took the coin, that young man went to the marketplace to buy something, and then they saw this coin, the size of the coin seemed like a treasure. And the man said, look, this is from a long time ago, this coin is. Where did you get this coin from? So they thought maybe he may have stolen it, may have discovered some treasure. He said, this is the money of our time. And on there you find that some of the ulama, they talk about the face of the king, or the stamp of the king was placed there. And then it was taken to the actual king himself, the current king, and he posed him and asked him some questions, and then they came to come and look at the location of the boys. So now you find that the time of kufr, and now comes the time of Islam. But this individual did not get to see the boys. As the ulama of Tafsir, they highlight, because when the first one entered, and they were all lifted by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, taken away from that location. And the seal and the door of the cave was sealed, and leave them as they are. So basically something came and closed the location of these young boys, and then it was said, build a place of worship over them, a place of remembrance of these young boys. And this shows the people of power and influence that many times they are the individuals who go around building graves and shrines of people. And they could be doing a lot more other beneficial things for the Muslim Ummah, and getting rid of this evil practice that you find when dead individuals, when they have passed away. Then comes verse number 22, how many boys were there in the cave? سَيَقُولُونَ ثَلَاثَةٌ رَابِعُهُمْ كَلْبُهُمْ وَيَقُولُونَ خَمْسَةٌ سَادِسُهُمْ كَلْبُهُمْ رَجْمًا بِالْغَيْبِ. They say that there was 3 of them, and the 4th one was a dog. They say there was 5 of them, and the 6th one was a dog. Or رَجْمًا بِالْغَيْبِ. These are just guesses at the unseen, or regarding the unseen. وَيَقُولُونَ سَبْعَةٌ وَثَامِنُهُمْ كَلْبُهُمْ. They say there was 7 and the 8th one was a dog. قُلْ رَبِّ أَعْلَمُ بِعِدَّتِهِمْ. Say, indeed my Lord knows accurately about their number. مَا يَعْلَمُهُمْ إِلَّا قَلِيلًا. And only a few people know about this. فَلَا تُمَارِ فِيهِمْ إِلَّا مِرَاءً ظَاهِرًا وَلَا تَسْتَفْتِ فِيهِمْ مِنْهُمْ أَحَدًا. So debate not except with the clear proof, and consult not any of the individuals. So here you find the 3 views about the number of these individuals. The first view, that there was 3 of them, and the 4th was the dog, which they highlight is the view of the Jews. The 5th, there was 5 of them, and the 6th one was a dog, is the view of the Christians. And both are described as guessing at the unseen. And then you find the final view, there was 7 of them, and the 8th one was a dog, and there's no comment. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala refutes the first 2 concepts, and then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala remains silent about the 3rd view. And thus you find many ulama take the opinion that the correct view is that there were 7 of them, and then the 8th one was the dog, the magnificent 7. Only a few understood and have the correct knowledge. مَا يَعْلَمُهُمْ إِلَّا قَلِيلٌ. And only a few people have their knowledge about this. That's why Ibn Abbas said, أَنَا مِنَ الْقَلِيلِ كَانُوا سَبْعًا. I'm amongst those few individuals who have the knowledge of this, and I'm letting you know that there was only 7 of them. However, you find there's no need to debate and take the benefit and the lesson of the story or the surah. There's no need to continuously debate about such issues as we mentioned about the dog, etc. The following ayat 23 and 24, which we began with previously, وَلَا تَقُولَنَّ لِشَيْءٍ إِنِّي فَاعِلٌ ذَلِكَ غَدًا إِلَّا إِن يَشَاءَ اللَّهُ وَاذْكُرْ رَبَّكَ إِذَا نَسِيتَ وَقُلْ عَسَىٰ أَن يَهْدِيَنِي رَبِّي لِأَقْرَبَ مِنْ هَذَا رَشَدًا. And do not say, I'm going to do any action tomorrow, I'm going to do any action the following day, except for to say, inshaAllah. And indeed my Lord is the one who will guide me to a nearer way of truth than this. And we already talked about the reason why this verse was sent down, and why the surah was sent down, and the etiquette of the surah, talking about whereby the Prophet Muhammad, he did not mention inshallah about answering to these questions to them. Now the ulama also bring with this verse another famous narration of Bukhari and Muslim, that Sulaiman alayhi salam, he said, لَأَطُوفَنَّ اللَّيْلَةَ عَلَى 70 إِمْرَأَةً. I will visit at night 70, my 70 wives. Another narration, 90 or 100. تَلِدُ كُلُّ إِمْرَأَةٍ مِّنْهُنَّ غُلَامًا يُقَاتِلُ فِي سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ. And each one of them will give birth to a child or to a boy who will fight in the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. فَلَمْ تَلِدْ مِنْهُنَّ إِلَّا مَرْأَةٌ وَاحِدَةٌ نِصْفَ إِنسان. None of them gave birth to a child except for one, and even that one who gave birth to half a human being. So he visited either narrations 100 women, or 90 or 70. The most he was requesting was 100 children, or at least the least would be 70, and all he received was half a child. And then you find the Prophet Muhammad said, if he had said inshallah, كَانَ دَرَكًا لِحَاجَتِهِ, if he had said inshallah, he would have attained what he wanted. So the hadith is in Bukhari and Muslim. Some ulama go to the opinion that even if you remember after 6 months or 1 year, you should still say inshaAllah. So even after 6 months you forgot to say inshaAllah, still say inshaAllah. So subhanAllah is how some of the ulama have gone to such a degree. Then you find the final discussion talks about the length of them staying inside the cave. وَلَبِثُوا فِي كَهْفِهِمْ 300 سِنِينَ وَازْدَادُوا تِسْعًا. They remained inside the cave for 300 years and increased upon that 9. قُلِ اللَّهُ أَعْلَمُ بِمَا لَبِثُوا لَهُ غَيْبُ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ أَبْصِرْ بِهِ وَأَسْمِعْ مَا لَهُ مِنْ دُونِهِ مِنْ وَلِيٍّ وَلَا يُشْرِكُ فِي حُكْمِهِ أَحَدًا. Say Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one that knows بِمَا لَبِثُوا, the time span that they remained inside the cave. لَهُ غَيْبُ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ, to Him belongs the knowledge of the unseen in the heavens and the earth, how clearly He hears and sees. So then you find both opinions here are mentioned. 300 years is equivalent to the solar years. 300 years plus 9 is equivalent to the lunar years. So that's a shay khafi, the extraction that some of the ulama have made. And here you find both counting of years are mentioned, whether it be the solar years you follow or the concept of lunar years. And Imam Tabari just highlights it. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala just states the facts. We don't need to delve into the science about the counting of the years, etc. So in conclusion, you find that the lessons that we learn, or the points, important points of these ayat talking about companions of the cave, is these people, they shun shirk in the beginning and in the end. The young boys, right from the beginning to the end, they disassociated themselves from the committing of any shirk. وَلَا يُشْرِكْ فِي حُكْمِهِ أَحَدًا, and none should associate any partners in the rule of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The concept of remaining steadfast is the second lesson that we learn about these young individuals. Thirdly, you find to put your trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Third, you find Allah will increase the individual with iman and guidance. You take those steps towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will increase you in iman and guidance. Fifth, we find Allah puts love and closeness in the hearts. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one that places this love and this affection, love for the righteous individuals, love for the ulama. Some people you haven't seen, you've only heard about them, you read about their writings. Sometimes, alhamdulillah, when I'm reading something that's written maybe centuries ago, you're reading some of the works and you feel as if you are in that time with the writer who's writing that work there. You feel great love and affection for that writing and for that individual, what they've written at that stage. Then you find trivial questioning, that always you find even amongst Muslims, you always find going for the trivial issues and not going for the core sciences and those things that will benefit the individual. But they like to turn it around to us and they like to say that your da'wah is only talking about the core, they talk about the peel, you don't work on the core issue. Many ulama have given a rebuttal about this. The skin of an apple is a reflection of the inner core of the apple. So if the external is corrupt, then in general, the internal will be corrupt as well. But that's what they try to hide behind. They try to say that you only focus on the external part of the sunnah, the external things, you don't work on the internal things. There's only a sickness in the heart that stops you from externally conducting the sunnah in your life. Unless there's some genuine excuse that we mentioned on many occasions, there's some hardship, some difficulty, whatever there may be. But for people now, more and more you find people coming out in the open, as we mentioned time and time again, concept of my hijab is inside my heart. God knows what's inside my heart. Allah knows what's inside my heart. Of course Allah knows, subhanahu wa ta'ala knows what's inside your heart, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one that trained the hearts and told the hearts that you should manifest your iman and carry out the teachings of Islam. So you find that this is the concept that many people of trivial questioning, or they begin to ask about what they call the nitty-gritty things. And this has been forbidden. You find, يَا أَيُّهَا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا لَا تَسْأَلُوا أَنْ أَشْيَاءَ إِن تُبْدَ لَكُمْ تَسُؤْكُمْ. Don't ask excessive questioning, that when there's answers given to you, تَسُؤْكُمْ, it could harm you. So certain things have been made easy in Islam. Take the easy option. Never take the difficult option. That's from the sunnah of the Prophet Muhammad. If two choices were given to him, both of them are halal, he would take the easy option. Why should we then take the more difficult option? Because harshness and hardness will only break the individual. You will not be able to continue that journey in the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Then we find another benefit, pure substance, pure food. Good food, wholesome food, is the way of the mu'min. Then you find Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will honor the righteous. You don't need graves, you don't need symbols, you don't need shrines, you don't need locations. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala himself subhanahu wa ta'ala will honor the righteous individuals. And then we find to say insha'Allah in every single action that we do, and then the length and stay upon this dunya is not very long. So even though these young individuals they were awake and they slept all the way until for 300 and 309 years, but really it's not a major thing the number, because verily this life is nothing but a very short life. And thus you find kalamhil basar, like the twinkling of an eye, is what you find that this world is. They will take some part about Musa and Khidr alayhi salam, and you find that once again that as we've been talking about the concept that the Quran is there to remove harshness, to take over the heart, to win over the heart. And thus you find that many individuals more and more they talk about the da'wah of the sunnah being full of harshness. And they say that your ilm, your knowledge is ilmul jaf, your knowledge is only dry science. That's why you find many people, they turn towards the Sufiya. And the story you see how these people make ta'wil and begin to follow and endorse the way of the Sufiya. They say you don't have tazkiyah within you. It's always your da'wah is only rebuttals and views and analysis and refutations. That's all that your da'wah is. That's incorrect. Just because some people have made that part of their life. Because some people, that's all that they know, how to refute people. That's not the way of Ahlul Sunnah. The way of Ahlul Sunnah is deep spirituality. That's what real Ahlul Sunnah is. Obviously there's a time that we will refute people, you will give a rebuttal, you will decline certain things. But if the whole of your message just becomes, that's all that you focus upon, then you've misunderstood the concept of Ahlul Sunnah. Because you find that this continuous refutation, it develops a harshness of the heart as well. And the Quran blames the hearts becoming harsh, becoming difficult. As you find in the beginning of Surah Al-Baqarah, ثُمَّ قَصَتْ قُلُوبُكُم مِّن بَعْدِ ذَلِكَ فَهِيَ كَالْحِجَارَةِ. Indeed, after that, the hearts became harsh like a rock, like a stone. أَوْ أَشَدُّ قَسْوَةً, or even more harsher than a rock. Why? وَإِنَّ مِنَ الْحِجَارَةِ لَمَا يَتَفَجَّرُ مِنْهُ الْأَنْهَارِ. Indeed, from the stone or from the rocks, you do find that water will spill out of them. وَإِنَّ مِنْهَا لَمَا يَشَقَّقُ فَيَخْرُجُ مِنْهُ الْمَاءِ. Some of them will split open and water will come out of them. وَإِنَّ مِنْهَا لَمَا يَحْبِطُ مِنْ خَشْيَةِ اللَّهِ. And some of them will fall down in the fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's a stone. That's a rock. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala praises, saying that it will fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So imagine the heart of the human being which doesn't submit to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And likewise you find in the Quran, أَلَمْ يَأْنِ لِلَّذِينَ آمَنُوا أَن تَخْشَأَ قُلُوبُهُمْ لِذِكْرِ اللَّهِ. Has not the time come for the believers that their heart should soften towards the dhikr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? وَمَا نَزَلَ مِنَ الْحَقِّ وَلَا يَكُونُ كَالَّذِينَ أُوتُوا الْكِتَابَ مِنْ قَبْلِ فَطَالَ عَلَيْهِمُ الْأَمَدُ فَقَسَتْ قُلُوبُهُمْ وَكَثِيرٌ مِّنْهُمْ فَاسِقُونَ. And don't let time come over you that your hearts become harsh and hard. فَقَسَتْ قُلُوبُهُمْ, just like the people before. وَكَثِيرٌ مِّنْهُمْ فَاسِقُونَ. And most of those individuals are the rebellious individuals. So this concept of khushuna or ghilza, any harshness and rudeness that you find, that should be turned over to lean, wa rifq, and rahmah. That's the way of Ahlul Sunnah, that should be turned over to this. The opposite is a real da'wah. And thus you find this harshness is manifest upon us, unfortunately. We don't really see any humbleness, tawadu, softness, being merciful, being compassionate. And thus you find that more and more people who've lived a life of a materialistic life, and they want to, or even unfortunately, I use these words with great reservation, that even amongst some of the ulama, that the materialistic aspect of life becomes important for them. And obviously, it's not trying to belittle them. Obviously, there's many that are still full of spirituality, and not to say that wealth is wrong, because everybody needs wealth. But people looking for spirituality, they find it amongst others. Because alhamdulillah, many times I've been with certain individuals, who may be prominent, etc. And sometimes then you do begin to question that if our scholarly people are behaving in this manner, then of course the general public is going to behave in this manner. All types of needs of the world that you find. So spirituality, abstinence, zuhud, is amongst the essences of Ahlul Sunnah. And obviously we want to go and show that concept of tazkiyah that you find of Ahl Sunnah, whereby they talk about ilm al-zahir. They say you people only know the zahir, the external affairs. We know the batin, the internal. And this story that we're going to discuss, inshallah, you're going to find, if there is such a thing as ilm al-zahir and ilm al-batin anyway in the first place, you will find both of them put together. The external knowledge and the internal knowledge that you find in the story talking about Musa and Khidr that you can find in this concept inside Surah Kahf. Now you find, as we mentioned, that unfortunately many of these individuals, they hijack this story. The false groups, they take this story of Khidr and they try to highlight this is the way on their own personal agenda, and as we'll talk about the way of the Tasawwuf and Sufiya that you find, that they use this story, this prime story, to highlight their own concept and their own understanding. So we want to go back and go through this story and take out the benefit for us and revitalize the stance of Ahl Sunnah. Because that's what many people they do. They take the same story and they make their own interpretation to fit into their own agenda, their own political agenda, or their own understanding. Now this story of Musa and Khidr runs from verse number 60 all the way up to verse number 82. So those are the main 22 verses we're going to be looking at, and looking at the classical ahadith which talk about Musa alayhi salam and his meeting with Khidr. And we just mentioned the beginning of the reason of this story, as you find in the narration of Imam Bukhari, that you find inna Musa qama khatiban min bani Israel, fi bani Israel. Musa alayhi salam stood up and he began to give the sermon or give the admonition to his people amongst them. فَسُئِلَ أَيُّ النَّاسِ أَعْلَمُ. He was asked, who is the most knowledgeable individual? قَالَ أَنَا. He said, I am. Now in face value, a person might think, how can that be possible? How can Musa alayhi salam be so flamboyant, so open, say, Ana, I'm the most knowledgeable one? Here the ulama highlight, and he's a prophet of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He's a messenger. He had every right to say those words, even though it wasn't words of arrogance, because obviously Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had given him revelation. So he was in the position that at that stage, he is the most knowledgeable individual. So his response wasn't one of arrogance. It was one of presenting his due right in front of these individuals, because he was a serving prophet at that time and revelation was given to him. But even then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wanted to humble him. That even for you to just say this, we want to show you, Ya Musa alayhi salam, that there is somebody who's got a science or a knowledge which is running parallel to your science or a deep understanding as well. And how many of us, subhanallah, need to be humbled as well. That's what we learn. Look at the humility of Musa alayhi salam. He didn't say, Ana Nabi, or Ana Rasul. He didn't say, look, I'm a messenger, I'm a prophet. And Allah, you're sending me to somebody else who's not even a messenger. He humbles himself. And he wants to carry out that journey, fi talab al-ilm, and a journey of studying of knowledge. But he's a Rasul. Even though some of the ulama talk about that, why does he travel to Khidr? He travels there because the knowledge that he's going to learn is a secondary knowledge which will strengthen his primary knowledge. Because as a messenger, he's been given the primary knowledge. There's something that Khidr can give him which will be another form of revelation. It's just a secondary science to strengthen him and to humble him in front of the people. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala rebuked him because he did not refer the knowledge back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and so said to him that go to find this individual at the junction of the two seas. There is a servant of ours who is more learned than you, and so you need to go and visit him and learn from him. So then we find that Musa alayhi salam, that he takes his journey showing no arrogance but total submission to go and learn from this individual. And that shows a lesson for all of us as well, inshallah, that wherever knowledge is, the person should go there to gain that knowledge. Knowledge is not reserved between certain individuals or certain group of individuals. That's why some of them, they talk about ulama, that if you want to know the mistakes of your teacher, or if you want to know a better teacher than your own teacher, then go and sit with a contemporary to the teacher. Because some people, unfortunately, more and more people, they try to reserve knowledge amongst their own group of individuals. Because the knowledge of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is vast and thrown upon different individuals in different ways, that you could go to someone else and learn. You can learn adab, you can learn manners, you can learn hadith, you can learn tafsir, you can learn so many things. Learn to extract the benefits from individuals. And that's why you find in the hadith that the mu'min, the believer, is mafatihul khair, is the keys of goodness. Keys of goodness, that if you see somebody who has incorrect knowledge, incorrect understanding, but they have something which is strong with them, then you should try to build good ties with them and correct them on the understanding that they've gone wrong and the things that they're doing right, and strengthen them in that, rather than for us to push ourselves away from people and think that we can only develop something on our own. Okay, so we find that he says that, oh my Lord, how can I meet him? So he said that take a fish and put it in a vessel, put it in a basket, in a miktal. Put the fish, a salted fish inside the basket, and wherever the fish jumps out, you will find the servant there. Now here you find some of the ulama talk about the benefits of fish. Lahman tariya. That's how the Quran describes it. That's why, wallahi, some books you read, once you get the Arabic language, you read some of the works. I mean, even some of them ulama said there's deviant, like Imam Razi. What's Imam Razi's famous work? Fathul Kabir, is it? Mafatih al-Ghaib, something or such. I forgot the name of his. Tafsir al-Kabir, that's right. Tafsir al-Kabir of Imam Razi. Some ulama said that فيه كل شيء إلا tafsir. In it is everything except for tafsir. But that's wrong though. Because I've read certain parts of Imam Razi, and many ulama said that's just a mubalagha, that's excessive speech. Because Imam Razi does talk about a lot of other things, but some extractions that he makes inside, they are beautiful. You can read them. Even people who classify the Mu'tazila, al-Kashaf of Zamakhshari, great ulama will quote him, because in terms of balagha, he's deep. In terms of his poetry and his writing and his dissecting of the words, you find it in Zamakhshari. So obviously general ulama said don't read their works, but yet they quote them. Why? Because they know there's some benefit inside there. Even though his aqeedah, he was a Mu'tazili in his aqaid. That's why you read the works of Imam Alusi and other ulama. Even the Tafsir ibn Kathir is the most authentic. But the problem with, if there's such a thing as a problem with the Tafsir ibn Kathir, is his language is very deep at times, the Arabic he uses. And you can't seem to find that flow. At certain times you just lock off away from him because his language is too deep. But if you look at, for example, Aysr al-Tafasir of Sheikh Abu Bakr al-Jazairi, contemporary, read his works, you find more of a flow, easy to read, especially for beginners. But obviously one of the best sources is to read Tafsir ibn Kathir. Imam Shanqiti, Adwa Bayan, 8 volumes, beautiful tafsir as well to read through that as well, inshallah. So you find that this fish, lahman tariya. So you find that some ulama tafsir, they start talking about this, they go into the concept of fish, the ahmiyatul fish, importance of it, and it's a preserved type of food, and the fish oils, it regulates your cholesterol, etc. All this science that you find inside there. Where you lose the fish, you will find him. There are some downfalls to eating too much fish as well, I won't mention them now. So he left this task to the young boy that was with him. وَإِذْ قَالَ مُوسَى لِفَتَاهُ لَا أَبْرَحُ حَتَّى أَبْلُغَ مَجْمَعَ الْبَحْرَيْنِ أَوْ أَمْضِيَ حُقُبًا. So Musa said to his young boy, لَا أَبْرَحُ, I'm not going to give up. Look at the commitment of Musa alayhi salam. He's not like many of us. Remember Musa alayhi salam, you read his seerah, you find ajab, strange things about Musa alayhi salam. He walked to Madian. You find that ulama tafsir, they talk about that, the skin of the bottom of his feet, was ripped, his lips turned green, he was eating the leaves from the trees, and he walked there. When he went there and he saw the girls, the 2 daughters of Shu'aib alayhi salam, if we take that view, they were his daughters, and he saw the shepherds all around them, and he still had the strength to pull up the bucket of water for them. And there was a whole group of men doing that. That shows Musa alayhi salam, the amount of strength that mashallah Musa alayhi salam had been given. And his commitment, لا أبرح حتى أبلغ مجمع البحرين أو أمضي حقبا. I'm going to carry on this journey until I come to the location of the two rivers where they meet, أو أمضي حقبا, or until I spend, the meaning of حقب is 70 or 80 years, another view is a lifetime. If I have to spend the whole of my life trying to find that pathway, I'm going to do that, was Musa alayhi salam. And you find the boy with him was Yusha' bin Nun. Yusha' bin Nun, after Musa alayhi salam, becomes the leader of Bani Israel after Musa alayhi salam. This is what you call a rihla fi talab al-ilm, a journey for the quest of knowledge. People today can't pick up a book and read a book, just close the book, get tired. People can't listen to something systematically and go through it carefully. People can't have sabr sitting in a halaqa. So think about the rihla of Musa alayhi salam. And that's why you find that the journey of knowledge is a long journey towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. A very long journey to gain that wisdom and that understanding and the appreciation of the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then you find the location, when they reached a rock in which they both lay down their heads and they slept. Maraj al-Bahrain yaltaqiyan, this is the location where the two waters they meet, the salt and the fresh water where they meet. And look at deviant tafsir of this. Maraj al-Bahrain yaltaqiyan, where the two waters meet. The Shia said that this is where Fatima meets Ali. يَخْرُجُ مِنْهُمَا اللُّؤْلُؤُ وَالْمَرْجَانِ, and comes out of them the pearls and the corals. Al-Hassan wal-Hussein. This is what we call deviancy at its prime level. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is talking about where the two rivers meet, the salty water and the sweet water. They say this is Fatima meeting Ali, getting married. And from them two come Al-Hassan wal-Hussein. So if you read the works of the Shia, people say, why do we highlight? It's in their works. وَإِذْ قَالَ مُوسَى لِقَوْمِهِ لَا إِنَّ اللَّهَ يَأْمُرُكُمْ أَن تَذْبَحُوا بَقَرًا. We told Musa alayhi salam to sacrifice the baqarah. The Shia say in their works, baqarah bima'na Aisha. And then you want us to have dialogue with you? There's no way that Ahlul Sunnah will have dialogue with Ahlul Shia. If that's your belief. And remember, the mass amount of Shia at the moment, they are rawafid. They are people who are rejectors of the companions. And they have a concept of belief. Obviously, I'm mentioning this because we're coming in the days of Muharram, whereby you find that they'll be beating themselves and torturing themselves. And let them torture themselves more. Because it's got nothing to do with the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This torturing, the suffering that they place upon themselves. You know, and so obviously if we go back to the works, you find great fallacies inside there. Now whereby you find that the two rivers met, going back to the topic, عَيْنٌ يُقَالُ لَهَا الْحَيَاةُ. This is the fountain of the river, which is called the river of life. And whatever is dead gets touched by that water will come back alive. So some splashes or some drops fell upon the fish, it began to move and it got out. فَاتَّخَذَ سَبِيلَهُ فِي الْبَحْرِ سَرَبًا. And it went into the river and it made a tunnel. And Yusha, he witnessed this. But he forgot to mention it, and they carried on the journey during the rest of the day and the whole night. The next morning, Musa a.s. says to him, now look at Musa now, he says to him, آتِنَا غَدَاءَنَا لَقَدْ لَقِينَ مِنْ سَفْرِنَا هَذَا نَصَبًا. Bring our meal to us now, because indeed we have suffered from this journey great exhaustion. So Musa did not get tired until he had passed the place that Allah had ordered, and he'd gone so far away, and then he remembers that, or the boy then remembers to bring the breakfast, and he says, وَمَا أَنْسَانِيهُ إِلَّا الشَّيْطَانِ أَنْ أَذْكُرَهُ وَاتَّخَذَ سَبِيلَهُ فِي الْبَحْرِ عَجَبًا. He said that shaitan is the one that, that made me forget. The shaitan's job is to make us forget, to distract us. Talbis of Iblis, the deception of the devil. That's his task. To deceive people, to distract people throughout our journey towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Musa alayhi salam said, ذَلِكَ مَا كُنَّا نَبْغِ فَارْتَدَّ عَلَى آثَارِهِمَا قَصَصًا. He said, that's what we were searching for. So they began to follow their footsteps to go back to that location. There they found a man covered with a garment. فَإِذَا رَجُلٌ مُسَجًّا بِثَوْبٍ. A man who's covered with a garment, and Musa alayhi salam gives him salam. And the man says, is there such a greeting in your land? So he gives him salam, and the man's asking him, is there such a greeting inside your land as well, the giving of salam? The man was Al-Khidr, and why has he been given this name? Ulama talk about the reason for why Al-Khidr has been given this name, as you find one in the hadith collected in the Sunan, in the Musnad of Imam Ahmad, and also a similar hadith in the Sahih of Imam Bukhari, is إِنَّمَا سُمِّيَ خَضِرًا لِأَنَّهُ جَلَسَ عَلَى فَرْوَةٍ بَيْضَاءٍ فَإِذَا هِيَ تَحْتَزُّ مِنْ تَحْتِهِ خَضُرًا. That if he was to sit upon a withered vegetation, a wide open land, and then if he was to get up from that location, it would turn green. So thus you find that green becomes the color of the Sufiya. So the green turban that you find goes back to Khidr alayhi salam, this concept of wearing the green turban. So one extreme to the other. From a righteous individual, he becomes a wali. From a wali, he becomes a leader of the awliya. From the leader of the awliya, he becomes a qutub. From a qutub, he becomes eternal. He's living in Aynul Hayya. So remember we said that water of life, he's living inside it, so he's living eternally. From there, it becomes you come to all types of extremes about this individual that you find, that he is the green man or the green one, You'll be quite surprised by this. He's Islam's patron saint of cannabis. That's what some Muslims have written about Khidr alayhi salam. You can go and research this. And they claim that the shrine is in Kataragama in Colombo in Sri Lanka. And some believe that he's still living and alive today. And some believe he's an angel. The only extreme that Ahl Sunnah go to is from a righteous individual, is some take on the opinion that he was a Nabi, that he was a prophet. That's the only two views that you find. Either he was a righteous individual, or the extreme view is that he was a prophet. Because why? Because there's certain actions that he done and certain words that he said that shows that he was a prophet. And this is the opinion of Ibn al-Jawzi, Imam Razi, and Sheikh Shanqiti takes the view that he is a Nabi, just like Musa alayhi salam. رَحْمَةً مِّن رَبِّكَ وَمَا فَعَلْتُهُ عَنْ أَمْرِي. He said, this is the mercy of my Lord, وَمَا فَعَلْتُهُ عَنْ أَمْرِي. I did not do this out of my own command, my own action. So some of the ulama are trying to interpret this, to highlight, this is a command from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Also the verse that we're on, فَوَجَدَ عَبْدًا مِّنْ عِبَادِنَا. He found a servant from amongst our servants, آتَيْنَاهُ رَحْمَةً مِّنْ عِنْدِنَا. We delivered mercy upon this individual, وَعَلَّمْنَاهُ مِنْ لَدُنَّا عِلْمًا. We'd given him some certain knowledge. Meaning that the knowledge he'd been given is the knowledge of prophethood. So then he said, who are you? He said, I am Musa. He said, who are you? Musa? Musa of Bani Israel. So he didn't say, I'm Musa the Nabi. He said, I'm Musa of the people of Bani Israel. So then he says to him, look, Inni ala ilmin min ilmillah. Musa alayhi salam says to him, look, really there's some knowledge that I have which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given to me. Allamanihi la ta'lamuhu anta. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has taught me and you don't know about it. Wa anta ala ilmin min ilmillahi. Allamaka Allahu la a'lamuhu. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has taught you something that I don't know and I need to take that from you. So look at the adab of Musa alayhi salam. He doesn't come and say to him, I'm Musa, I'm Nabiullah, I'm the Prophet of Allah, I'm Kalimullah, the one that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala spoke to. He say, look, I've been given some knowledge that's been bestowed upon me that possibly you don't know about that knowledge. And you've been given some knowledge that I don't know about and I need to extract that knowledge from you. Shows once again the adab, the fine character of Musa alayhi salam. Gentle terms, the seek of knowledge. قَالَ لَهُ مُوسَى هَلْ أَتَّبِعُكَ. Musa says to him, can I please follow you? أَتَّبِعُكَ. Can I have suhbah with you, companionship? Can I remain with you? عَلَى أَن تُعَلِّمَنِي مِمَّا عُلِّمْتَ رُشْدًا. That I can, أَن تُعَلِّمَنِي مِمَّا عُلِّمْتَ رُشْدًا, that I can gain some benefit and some guidance from being with you. Now look at that in comparison to young, new Muslims. People who become Muslims for a month, or 6 months, or a year. And a person who's been a Muslim for 20 years, 25 years of their life, and I try to feel some comparison between those individuals. Musa alayhi salam is well versed, but look at his etiquette. هَلْ أَتَّبِعُكَ. Can I follow you? Can I be with you? Can I learn from you? Can I benefit from you? So people, after 1 month of studying, 6 months of studying, they like to challenge their teachers, like to speak ill of their teachers, challenge other individuals. Islam is not a challenge. Wallahi, Islam, there's no challenge in Islam. Islam is only a way of trying to better your own self. If a person hasn't read certain works, we don't know. Wallahu a'lam. Strengthen the individual, give them some works of something that you may have read that's beneficial. Shaykh, why don't you read this? Why don't you study this? Why don't you look into this? Have you thought about this topic? Have you looked into this issue? Have you looked into this affair? In hakada, you strengthen an individual and benefit people. Thus you find that via experience. Khidr is not arrogant, but he's been given some foresight. He says to him, إِنَّكَ لَن تَسْتَطِيعَ مَعِيَ الصَّبْرَ. You're not going to have patience with me. You're not going to have patience with me. And thus you find that tajriba, experience, is a big thing. Because many of the youth, they're inexperienced. They don't have experience. So Khidr has seen that in Musa alayhi salam. He's got a strong personality. He's strong iman. But Khidr can highlight that, you're going to give me problems on this journey. You're going to be difficult on this journey. And I'm telling you now, لَن تَسْتَطِيعَ مَعِيَ الصَّبْرَ. You're not going to have patience with me. Musa promises to be patient with him. So they set out on that journey. I'm sure that we're all familiar with the story. Until they come, until a boat passes by, or a boat comes to them. And then they board that boat. فانطلق حتى إذا ركب في السفينة خرقها. They both board the ship, and then he takes out a plank and he breaks the plank. When they get to the other side, قال أخرقتها لتغرق أهلها لقد جئت شيئا إمرا. He said, what are you doing here? These people show goodness to you. You come with something evil, you break their boat. After they take you to the other side. قال لم أقل إنك لن تستطيع معي صبرا. Did I not say to you, you're not going to have patience with me? I'm telling you, you're not going to have patience with me. قال لا تؤاخذني بما نسيت. Don't take me for what I forgot. ولا ترحقني من أمري عسرا. And do not be hard upon me for my affair with you. Take it easy with me, Shaykh. I made the mistake, leave me alone. So that's what you find. فكانت الأولى من موسى نسيانا. So the first time was your mistake, Ya Musa. You slipped, so we let you off. That was nisyan, that was forgetfulness, that's acceptable. And then it's time to teach him another lesson as well, that whilst they're inside that boat, that you find that a bird comes and it rests on the end of the ship or the safina, and it pecks its beak into the ocean and takes away a small drop of the ocean or the water. And Khidr says to him, your knowledge and my knowledge, in comparison to the knowledge of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, is that small drop of water in the beak of that bird. So Musa, you think you know a lot, and you may think, I know a lot. But that in relation to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is very, very minimal. That's why you find, وَمَا أُوتِيتُم مِّنَ الْعِلْمِ إِلَّا قَلِيلًا. The knowledge that insan has been given is a minute knowledge. مَا عِلْمِي وَعِلْمُكَ فِي عِلْمِ اللَّهِ إِلَّا مِثْلُ مَا نَقَصَ هَذَا الْأُصْفُورِ. My knowledge, your knowledge in comparison to the knowledge of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is that small amount of water in the beak of that sparrow, that bird. وَفَوْقَ كُلِّ ذِي عِلْمٍ عَلِيمٍ. Over every single knowledgeable individual is the one who is full of knowledge, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When they disembarked from the boat and whilst walking on the shore, Khidr kills a boy, just grabs him and kills him. أَقَتَلْتَ نَفْسًا زَكِيَّةً بِغَيْرِ نَفْسٍ لَقَدْ جِئْتَ شَيْئًا نُكْرًا. How can you kill an innocent boy, a pure boy, without any justification? لَقَدْ جِئْتَ شَيْئًا نُكْرًا. You come with something repulsive, something evil. And once again Khidr says to him, did I not tell you that you will not have patience with me? Musa said, listen, give me one final chance. If I ask again, then you need get rid of me. So they entered into a town. They refused to entertain them. They refused to take care of them. They refused them any hospitality, and they told them to leave the town. As they leave the town, you find that Khidr alayhi salam, or Khidr, he finds a wall about to drop. فَأَقَامَهُ. He fixes this wall. Once again, Musa alayhi salam, look at Musa, no sabr. وَدِدْنَا أَنَّ مُوسَى كَانَ الصَّبْرَ حَتَّى يَقُصَّ اللَّهُ عَلَيْنَا مِنْ خَبَرِهِمَا لَوْ لَبِثَ مَعَ صَاحِبِهِ لَأَبْصَرَ الْعَجَبِ. The Prophet Muhammad highlights that if Musa alayhi salam had that extra bit of patience, he would have seen many strange things. But because he made that promise, you need to keep yourself away from me if I ask again. And that's why the relationship was stopped there. Other than Musa alayhi salam had the sabr, he would have seen many more strange things of what Khidr alayhi salam would have done. Then comes the explanation of the actions of Khidr. السفينة وكان وراءهم ملك يأخذ كل سفينة غصبا. كان وراءهم, Ibn Abbas says, كان يقرأ أمامهم. In front of them was a king. So when they got to the other side, he would take the boat and take it by force. So it was better that he breaks the plank of wood, that they can repair it. So when a king comes to take the boat, it's disabled. And they can repair it and they can use the boat again. So Khidr alayhi salam was trying to protect this family. أما الغلام وأما الغلام فكان أبواه مؤمنين. As for the young boy, his parents were Muslims. Ibn Abbas will read this verse, وَأَمَّا الْغُلَامُ فَكَانَ كَافِرًا. So the reading that we have is وَأَمَّا الْغُلَامُ فَكَانَ أَبَوَاهُ مُؤْمِنَيْنِ. He would read it وَأَمَّا الْغُلَامُ فَكَانَ كَافِرًا وَكَانَ أَبَوَاهُ مُؤْمِنَيْنِ. That the boy was a disbeliever and his parents were believers. So الْغُلَامُ الَّذِي قَتَلَهُ الْخَضِرُ طُبِعَ يَوْمْ طُبِعَ كَافِرًا. The young boy that was killed by Khidr was a disbeliever from the day that he was born. So he had to be taken out of the way. And you find that their love for him might make them follow him in disbelief. So this young boy had to be stopped. And as you find, لا يقضي الله للمؤمن من قضاء إلا كان خيرا له. There's no decree upon the individual, upon the believer, except for something good. So externally, Musa found it something hard and difficult. How can any Khidr kill this young boy? But it was something beneficial, because this individual would go and harm the parents at a later stage, or lead them into kufr and disbelief. Then you find some ulama tafsir, they highlight that they were given a new child. And the child that were given was a jariyah, was a girl on this occasion. So even though gender doesn't matter, it's the good action and the piety, but some ulama, they highlight this to show that girls and daughters will lead the individual into paradise as well. As we know, many of the different narrations that you find, whoever has 2 daughters and brings them up and takes care of them will be like this with the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So all an encouragement, that gender doesn't matter, is that most times they could be the source of a person entering into paradise, because many times sons are just ruthless and just don't really seem to care about their parents, etc. And then you find the jidar. وَأَمَّا الْجِدَارُ فَكَانَ لِغُلَامَيْنِ يَتِيمَيْنِ. As for the wall, it belonged to the 2 orphan children. And here you find, what is the extraction that we learn here? Is leave something behind for your family, for your progeny. So their father left behind some wealth for them. So as long as that wall remained there, it should remain there for a good span of years, and when it does collapse and the treasure is discovered, etc., then obviously the children will be at an age, the 2 orphans, to use that wealth. But he left something for them. So here you find that leaving behind wealth or some form of saving of property, there's no haraj, there's no harm in doing that. Rather than your progeny, you find many athar as well, many narrations about companions wanting to donate all of their wealth, etc., and he encourages them, no, leave something behind for your family. Do you want your family to go and beg around from people? So that's an extraction. There's no harm in leaving something behind for one's family. Another extraction that you find, these people, they threw them out. Look at the action of Khidr. Do good to people who be bad to you, because opposites attract. So people who show badness to you, you show goodness to them. That's a sunnah. Not people who show badness to you, I'll be bad to them, I'll be evil to them. Like what yesterday one of the reverend brothers in our class was highlighting that, he was saying that, I would wash the feet of my father, even though he's a non-Muslim. Because first there was animosity between me and him, and then I've reflected and began to think that no, even though he's still my father at the end of the day. So he said that's the type of action, puts us to shame. And he's highlighted this is the way that we should be behaving towards our parents. And third extraction we find is at times do actions to seek no reward. So Khidr just erects the wall and he walks away, finish. Even the people call him back, why have you done this, what are you doing, why are you doing this action for, finish. So Muslim should leave, the mu'min should leave something in his dunya that nobody knows about. A good action left behind is walks away. Even yourself, you forget about it. And on the day of judgment, you find that the person who gave with his right hand or concealed it, and on that day you'll be shown, presented in front of that individual. So a person should try to find an opportunity whereby you can benefit someone or benefit the community without anybody knowing about it, and only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has knowledge about that. And then comes the concept of the hidden knowledge. وَمَا فَعَلْتُهُ عَنْ أَمْرِي. I did not do that out of my own knowledge, out of my own affair, my own command. ذَلِكَ تَأْوِيلُ مَا لَمْ تَسْتَطِعْ عَلَيْهِ صَبْرًا. That is the ta'wil of that which you don't have sabr about. So the actions of Khidr are not his own special actions. They are still a form of revelation and inspiration from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala telling him what to do. So when people, once again, as we began, we try to extract that these people have certain actions and certain commands and certain rights that they can follow. La, that's not true. Because the Qur'an here itself is concluding, وَمَا فَعَلْتُهُ عَنْ أَمْرِي. I didn't do this out of my own will. This is something that's been bestowed down by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Come to the part, alhamdulillah, about Dhul Qarnayn, the story of Dhul Qarnayn from ayat, the verses 83 to verse number 98. بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم ويسألونك عن ذي القرنين قل سأتلو عليكم منه ذكرا. They ask you about Dhul Qarnayn. Indeed, we should narrate upon you the reminder or the story about this individual. And the benefit for all of us, not just us, but focusing upon the hadith of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, what we learn, inshallah, from this story, we find from the hadith, ad-dinu nasiha, religion, sincere advice. قُلْنَا liman, for whom? قال, the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, لله ولكتابه ولرسوله ولأئمة المسلمين وعامتهم. Advice is towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, His book, His messenger, and the imams of the Muslims, leaders of the Muslims, or the A'immah of the Muslims, وعامتهم, and the general masses of the mankind, whether it be including Muslims and even possibly non-Muslims as well. Al-Hadith ma rawahu Imam Muslim in his Sahih. Now obviously, most of this discussion about Dhul Qarnayn is an advice for many of the rulers as well. So we don't want to sound or be political, but we need to learn and extract and understand the benefits of these verses, which do apply وَلِيَئِمَّةِ الْمُسْلِمِينَ, for the leaders of the Muslims and the rulers that we find at the moment amongst the Muslims. Because we find that only 4 kings ever dominated in most of the planet. 2 of them mu'minan, 2 of them were Muslims, and 2 of them were kafiran, 2 of them were disbelievers. As for the 2 believing kings, Awalan Sulaiman, firstly was Sulaiman, and secondly was Dhul Qarnayn. These are the 2 kings who dominated most of the earth. Amma kafiran, the 2 disbelieving kings were Namrud, the one whom Ibrahim alayhi salam met, and Bakht Nasr. So these are the 4 kings that you find that governed a large portion of the earth, if not most, if not all of the earth. Wallahu a'lam. Now we find that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave him the real dominance, like a just king. And there wasn't many of those in history, in the normal history, and neither in the Islamic history do you find just rulers and kings amongst the Muslims as well. And you find Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says about Dhul Qarnayn in the following verse number 84, إِنَّا مَكَّنَّا لَهُ فِي الْأَرْضِ وَآتَيْنَاهُ مِنْ كُلِّ شَيْءٍ سَبَبًا. Verily we established him in the earth and we gave him the means of everything. Now we find that this concept of kingship or kingdomship that you find is something that can go against the sharia of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Obviously we don't want to create havoc and a coup or a uprising or upheaval or revolution full of bloodshed, etc. But kingship or kingdomship, mulukiyah, is against the sunnah of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And you find the famous hadith how there will be the khulafa, then after will come leaders, etc. And then you find that there will be a time of mulukiyah, of kingdomship. And then after that, once again, it will return back to the khilafa ala minhaj al-nubuwah. It will come back to once again the Islamic caliphate upon the minhaj al-nubuwah, upon the methodology of the prophethood, the sunnah of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And thus we can understand why certain respectable individuals, ulama and scholars, will remain quiet about kingship, because they feel at times that as long as there is law and order in the country, it's best to remain silent about such affairs for the sake of surviving or saving people from bloodshed and turmoil. Leave these people, let them be inside their positions. Now the current kingships that some people may think that we're not aware or not in touch, just leave them alone. Personally, I'm not one of those individuals who just leaves certain things alone. Doesn't mean that we're talking about them in a bad manner, etc. But there's a time to discuss certain things as well, that we're all well aware of what is taking place in the Muslim lands. Because you find that many people, jabbarun fil jahiliyyah, are arrogant or powerful in ignorance. Wa khawanun fil Islam, when they come to Islam they become cowardly. That's not what Islam is. Any characters like Umar ibn Khattab, he was jabbar in Jahiliyyah, he was jabbar in Islam as well. No one stepped over him in days of Jahiliyyah, nobody walked over him in Islam as well. That's why sometimes we have too much of a soft attitude about our Islamic understanding, that we wouldn't let anybody walk over us in Jahiliyyah, but we let everybody walk over us when it comes to Islam. Now, the mu'min, the believer, shouldn't be worried about what these people are doing, or be worried at all. Those people have a greater responsibility that they'll have to return back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala about the people that they are governing and the position that they've been given. Now just a brief insight of the concept of the mulukiyah, the kingdomship, or the kingship that exists in the Muslim lands at the moment. And in some of these statistics, etc., that we just collected, alhamdulillah, just so we're aware of. You find, for example, in Morocco, you find Al-Malik Muhammad al-Sadis, Muhammad VI, who they call Amirul Mu'mineen, which is just a symbolic title, because we all know what the meaning of Amirul Mu'mineen is. So a person to give that title to himself, it doesn't really carry the meaning of the real Amirul Mu'mineen that you find. And this concept of the ruler, the sultan, or kingship inside the Al-Maghrib that developed from the Alawite dynasty since 1666, that this has been continuously flowing within the state of Maghrib, that kings after kings that you find. And he was born in the year 1963, and currently became the king in the year 1999. Malik al-Urdun, the king of Jordan, born 13th of January 1962, Abdullah al-Thani, Abdullah II. And he also became the king of that country in 1999. Now the Jordanian monarchy was set up in 1921, of those of you who are not aware, by the help of the British, the people in this country. That's the reason why we're highlighting certain of these points, because some people think that these things just happened all of a sudden. There always is certain people, key players, who develop this type of understanding in the Muslim world. And before Malik Abdullah Thani, there was 3 previous kings inside the land of Urdun. King Abdullah I from 1921 to 1951, King Talal I from 1951 to 52, only for 1 year he reigned, and then King Hussein I from 1952 to 1999. So from 1921 you find the first British involvement. Then once again you find King Hussein gets married to a woman by the name of married to Princess Muna al-Hussein, who originally was Antoinette Tony Avril Gardiner, a British woman. And from there you find the current king, King Abdullah Thani, who's half British in other words. So don't be surprised if there's British etiquettes and a British system, a way of life inside this Muslim land. Thirdly, that doesn't mean we're speaking bad to the British. It's good luck to them that they have a deep understanding of how to dominate the Muslim empire and take control of it. Thirdly, the land of Misr, the land of Egypt. You find there Al-Malik Faruq al-Awwal, Faruq the First, who reigned from the year 1936, born in 1920 and died in 1965, but became the king of that country in 1936, took over from his father, King Fuad I, and this king, Faruq al-Awwal, dominating the land of Misr, an Arabic country, did not speak any Arabic. So this is an Arab country, whereby the king of that country does not know how to speak Arabic, only Turkish, and he becomes the king of that country at the age of 16. His lavish lifestyle, his own people called him the thief of Cairo. That's what the people used to call him, this king who governed Misr. And then the coming of the military coup in 1952 by Jamal Abdel Nasser was a totally different story. If you read the seerah and the life of Jamal Abdel Nasser and the atrocities that he done, forced Farouk to abdicate and to leave Misr, and he was exiled into Italy. Then you find the beloved country to many of us, which many people dare speak about, because obviously, because of Al-Haramain, the precincts of the two, Mecca and Medina, Al-Mamlikatul Arabiya Al-Saudiya, the kingdom of Saudi Arabia. You find that the current king, Al-Malik Abdullah, who took position in 2005, born in the year 1924. All the kings of that country are all the sons of Ibn Saud, and are considered to have primary claim on the kingship. Kingship will never go outside the family of Ibn Saud. It will remain there, and this is nothing but what they call nepotism, favoritism, which has no place in Islam, of favouring one's relatives and friends rather than abilities and the concept of taqwa. King Abdul Aziz, who they call Ibn Saud. Ibn Saud is the original founder when he returned back from Kuwait and he took over Riyadh. Born in the year 1880 and died in the year 1953, or the 9th of November 1953, who ruled from the year 1932 when he returned back to Riyadh until 1953 for 21 years. And all the rest of the kings are all of his sons. You find King Saud, born in the year 15th of January 2002, died in 1969, ruled for 11 years. Then you find King Faisal, who ruled for the following 11 years. King Khalid as well, his son, born in the year 1912, who ruled for the next 7 years. Then King Fahad, born in the year 1921, died 1st of August 2005, ruled for the following 23 years from 1982 to 2005. Then you find King Abdullah, born 1924, reigning from 2005 until the current day, even though he was technically in place before that due to the illness of Malik al-Fahad. Now people just want to praise and flatter the rulers. That's a common practice that you find. There will be ulama al-dawla. Don't be taken aback. Don't ever think they don't exist. There will be scholars of the government who will aid whatever government it may be, whether it be the land of Saudi Arabia, the land of Jordan, the land of Misr, the land of Morocco. You find that certain scholars will be placed there to seek benefit for those people who are governing them. And even at times change rulings to benefit the people that are there. And we should be aware of that. That doesn't mean that we're speaking ill of them, but that is something which has been highlighted, that there will be ulama usu, there will be evil scholars. And evil scholars will only come about because they've been pocketed by the government or being controlled by the government. That does not mean that every single scholar that works for the government or is taking a payroll from the government is not speaking the truth or is twisting the rulings. There will always be people who are upon the truth as well. Now we don't want to defame them. We can quote their downfalls, their lavish lifestyles, their squandering of wealth, etc. You can find that a whole series of research can be done about what these people have committed in the name of Islam and the atrocities that they commit and the squandering of the wealth of the Muslim Ummah. We only want to encourage them because of the position that they are in to become like Dhul Qarnayn. That's what we're trying to do. That you've been placed in that position, and just like Dhul Qarnayn had that, if possible, that lavish way of life in the sense of things that were exposed to him. But look at the way he took his role as being giving dominance upon the land. And bear in mind the verse of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in Surah Ali Imran, the 3rd chapter, verse 26, قُلِ اللَّهُمَّ مَالِكَ الْمُلْكِ تُؤْتِي الْمُلْكَ مَنْ تَشَاءُ وَتَنْزِعُ الْمُلْكَ مِمَّنْ تَشَاءُ وَتُعِزُّ مَنْ تَشَاءُ وَتُذِلُّ مَنْ تَشَاءُ بِيَدِكَ الْخَيْرِ إِنَّكَ عَلَى كُلِّ شَيْءٍ قَدِيرٌ. You're the one, our Lord, Malik al-Mulk, the king of all these kingdoms. تُؤْتِي الْمُلْكِ, you give the kingdomship to whoever you want. وَتَنْزِعُ الْمُلْكَ مِمَّنْ تَشَاءُ, you snatch it away from whoever you want. وَتُعِزُّ مَنْ تَشَاءُ, you give honor to whomever you want. وَتُذِلُّ مَنْ تَشَاءُ, you disgrace whomever you want. بِيَدِكَ الْخَيْرِ إِنَّكَ عَلَى كُلِّ شَيْءٍ قَدِيرٌ. And indeed, all goodness, you are witness upon everything, and all goodness lies in your hands. Then you find the ayat that continue, تُولِجُ اللَّيْلَ فِي النَّهَارِ وَتُولِجُ النَّهَارَ فِي اللَّيْلِ وَتُخْرِجُ الْحَيَّ مِنَ الْمَيِّتِ وَتُخْرِجُ الْحَيَّ مِنَ الْمَيِّتِ وَتَرْزُقُ مَنْ تَشَاءُ بِغَيْرِ حِسَابٍ. You're the one who then brings the night into the day into the night, the dead from the living and the living from the dead, and you give sustenance and provision to whoever you want without any accountability. And then you find these words which go back to this concept of honor and dignity. لا يتخذ المؤمنون الكافرين أولياء من دون المؤمنين. Never can the believers take the disbelievers as allies at the stake of the Muslims. Meaning that izzah, glory, only belongs to the believers and persons who seek to be amongst the Muslims. Likewise, the famous verse in the Quran, لِمَنِ الْمُلْكُ الْيَوْمِ لِلَّهِ الْوَاحِدُ الْقَهَّارِ. To whom does the kingdomship belong on this day? To the one and only irresistible Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. As ayat that these people should reflect and to think about in the positions that they've been placed in. And who was Dhul Qarnayn? Dhul Qarnayn that you find in the ulama of history, have discussed and other ulama have talked about. First view that you find that exists is he was what they call Alexander the Great. Alexander III, the king of Macedonia or Macedon from 336 to 323 BC before Christ. Who they classify as the Greek military commander because he conquered some 70 countries. And you find the famous movie made about him in 1955 and then another movie in 2004. However, we find that many ulama go against the view that it's Alexander the Great because the Quran talks about him being al-muwahhid, being a muwahhid, one singling out and worshipping only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Whereby you find if he is the Greek military commander, Alexander the Great, according to words that they use. We know that the Greeks are just full of nothing but shirk. So obviously from Islamic point of view, it doesn't fit into the correct context that this Greek military commander was Dhul Qarnayn. Another view that exists in some of the books of history is that Cyrus the Great of Persia is another view that exists, could be Dhul Qarnayn. As for the name, and then obviously the third view is Wallahu A'lam, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best who is Dhul Qarnayn. But those are the three views that exist. Firstly, that is Alexander the Great. Secondly, Cyrus, the king of Persia. And thirdly, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best. As for why is his name Dhul Qarnayn? Why is his name Dhul Qarnayn? First, they said that his name is Malik al-Rum wa Faris, because he is the king of the two cities of the Romans and the Persians. So he's been given that title. Also, you find secondly, أنه بلغ المشارق والمغارب, because he went all the way to the east and went all the way to the west. So he's classified as the Dhul Qarnayn. The third view is because literally, Qarnayn means the man of two horns. So the helmet that he wore had two horns on it. So that's the third understanding that you find, is because he literally wore a helmet of two horns. So they call him Dhul Qarnayn, the companion of two horns. Because obviously Qarn is one horn, and Qarnayn is two horns that he would be wearing on the top of his helmet. And we find that then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as we mentioned, إِنَّا مَكَّنَّا لَهُ فِي الْأَرْضِ وَآتَيْنَاهُ مِنْ كُلِّ شَيْءٍ سَبَبًا. Indeed, we gave him establishment in the earth, tamkeen on the land, and we gave him the means of everything. Now once established in the land, not just by power but by belief. So he had the power in the land, and he had the strong belief which he enforced in the land. That's what power means according to Islam. That if a person is given power and dominance, then that dominance means that you begin to dominate the people, by even if it means by enforcing the law of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala upon them. That's why you find that what can be done by the sultan cannot even be done by the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you can only recite it and talk about it, but the sultan can come and take the book and make it the law of the country. And this athar is quite famous, that what can be done by the sultan is far greater than what can be done by the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that's you find the Quran when it talks about giving people tamkeen, establishment on the land. What do the correct people go and do? وَعَدَ اللَّهُ الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا مِنْكُمْ وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ لَيَسْتَخْلِفَنَّهُمْ فِي الْأَرْضِ كَمَا اسْتَخْلَفَ الَّذِينَ مِنْ قَبْلِهِمْ وَلَيُمَكِّنَنَّ لَهُمْ دِينَهُمُ الَّذِي ارْتَضَى لَهُمْ وَلَيُبَدِّلَنَّهُمْ مِنْ بَعْدِهِمْ خَوْفِهِمْ أَمْنًا. In Surah An-Nur, the 24th chapter, verse number 55, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has promised those people who believe amongst you and do the righteous deeds, لَيَسْتَخْلِفَنَّهُمْ فِي الْأَرْضِ, that we will give them the inheritance of the land, كَمَا اسْتَخْلَفَ الَّذِينَ مِنْ قَبْلِهِمْ, as we gave inheritance the land of the people before them. وَلِيُمَكِّنَنَّ لَهُمْ, and we will give them tamkeen, we will give them establishment and position in the land with the deen that they are content with and happy with, and then we will change them. وَلَيُبَدِّلَنَّهُمْ مِنْ بَعْدِ خَوْفِهِمْ أَمْنًا, and change the state of fear into a change of tranquility and peace. What is the criteria of giving that dominance to them? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, يَعْبُدُونَنِي وَلَا يُشْرِكُونَ بِي شَيْئًا. They worship only me and they commit no shirk with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So that is at the beginning once again of Tawheed. That once they're given the dominance in the land, they follow that criteria. Worship only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and worship only Him subhanahu wa ta'ala, and do not associate any partners with Him subhanahu wa ta'ala. Likewise, you find Yusuf alayhi salam in the 12th chapter, verse number 56, وَكَذَلِكَ مَكَّنَّا لِيُوسُف. So once again we're talking about tamkeen, the word tamkeen, imkan, giving person the position in the land. When we gave Yusuf the imkan, or مَكَّنَّا لِيُوسُفَ فِي الْأَرْضِ يَتَبَوَّأُ مِنْهَا حَيْثُ يَشَاءُ, and he was able to travel wherever he wanted inside his land. نُصِيبُ بِرَحْمَتِنَا مَنْ نَشَاءُ وَلَا نُضِيعُ أَجْرَ الْمُحْسِنِينَ, and we give our mercy, a portion of our mercy, to whomever we want. وَلَا نُضِيعُ أَجْرَ الْمُحْسِنِينَ, and we do not let the actions of the doers of good go to waste. So the righteous, when they are given tamkeen and they dominate, you find once again, الَّذِينَ إِن مَكَّنَّاهُمْ فِي الْأَرْضِ, those individuals that we give them tamkeen on the land, أَقَامُوا الصَّلَاةِ, they establish the prayer, وَآتُوا الزَّكَاةَ وَأَمَرُوا بِالْمَعْرُوفِ وَنَهَوْا عَنِ الْمُنْكَرِ وَلِلَّهِ عَاقِبَةُ الْأُمُورِ. In Surah An-Nur, the 22nd chapter of the Quran, verse number 41, those people, الَّذِينَ إِن مَكَّنَّاهُمْ فِي الْأَرْضِ, we give them position in the land, authority in the land, they establish the prayer. They establish the giving and the collecting of zakah. وَأَمَرُوا بِالْمَعْرُوفِ They order the good and they forbid the evil, and to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala when He return back all affairs. That's what Islamic dominance means. Unfortunately, many Islamic countries, they have a secular agenda. They have socialism inside their agenda. They're not interested in establishing the prayer, in establishing az-zakah. They're not interested in spreading the ordering of good and the forbiddance of evil. That is a normal understanding of the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that every single Muslim country should be delved into such an understanding. وَآتَيْنَاهُ مِنْ كُلِّ شَيْءٍ سَبَبًا We gave him the affairs of everything. Now what does the word sababa mean? Sababa, manazilul ard. We gave him all of the positions on the earth. Another understanding, ta'alimul al-sina, the knowledge of all of the different languages. Whenever he would enter into a qawm upon his people, except for that he had the ability to speak the language of that people, meaning that he understood the culture and the thaqafa and everything about those individuals. Another opinion of sababa means ilma. We gave him all concepts of knowledge were given to him, and this is the view of Ibn Abbas and Mujahid and Sa'id ibn Jubair and Ikrimah. So that's the meaning of sababa. Now different parts and features of the earth are given to Dhul Qarnayn, just like Bilqis, the queen of Sheba, in the 27th chapter, verse number 27th chapter, Surah An-Naml, verse number 23, you find وَأُوتِيَتْ مِنْ كُلِّ شَيْءٍ She was given, and مِنْ كُلِّ شَيْءٍ everything was exposed to, the queen of Sheba, to Bilqis. What monarchs are given, what they really need to be given is Iman. That's what need to be given at the moment. Because obviously they have everything at their exposure at the moment, but they don't have the concept of Iman. Allah gave him the means of all things, meaning the means and power to conquer all areas, regions and countries, to defeat enemies, suppress the kings of the earth and humiliate the people of shirk. So at the moment we find that many of the Muslims, they have everything at their exposure, but they don't have the Iman. They don't have the courage to stand up for their belief in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the defense of the Muslims. Now if we take a look at the journey of Dhul Qarnayn, first you find the west, فَأَتْبَعُوا سَبَبًا So he followed away. Ibn Abbas said he followed different routes to achieve what he wanted. Mujahid said he followed different routes, to the east and the west, a route that he took through the land. Qatada said he followed the routes and landmarks of the earth. حَتَّى إِذَا بَلَغَ مَغْرِبَ الشَّمْسِ Until he came to the furthest point. And the furthest point that they highlight is reached the place in the sky where the sun sets. The sun set behind him is all false. He went all the way so far away that he got close to the sun. But the real meaning is that what it carries the meaning that he travelled far across the land to conquer all these areas. Until what? وَجَدَهَا تَغْرُبُ فِي عَيْنٍ حَمِيَةٍ Until he saw the sun as if it was setting in the ocean. So he went all the way to the other side of the globe, whereby he could visualize the sun setting into the ocean created by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And there he found at that spot, that location, وَوَجَدَ عِنْدَهَا قَوْمًا He found a nation or a people there. So look at the command and the address of Dhul Qarnayn to these people. قُلْنَا يَا ذَا الْقَرْنَيْنِ إِمَّا أَن تُعَذِّبَ وَإِمَّا أَن نَتَّخِذَ فِيهِمْ حُسْنًا Either you punish them or treat them with kindness. So this is the advice given to Dhul Qarnayn, and this is where you find real justice. قَالَ أَمَّا مَنْ ظَلَمَ فَسَوْفَ نُعَذِّبُهُ ثُمَّ يُرَدُّ إِلَىٰ رَبِّهِ فَيُعَذِّبُهُ عَذَابًا نُكْرًا So whoever oppresses, so then we will فَسَوْفَ نُعَذِّبُهُ We will punish that individual, then he will return back to his Lord to face a terrible torment. So the persistence of evil, kufr, shirk means punishment in this world first. The task of the ruler, the governor, is to at times punish human beings, so it becomes a deterrent for people to enter into that sin, and when the individual returns back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that individual will have to face that punishment in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, even more chastisement. Now here it should be highlighted, this does not mean that we take the law into our own hands. Here we're talking about the ruler and the governor implementing the law, because many people will take that we can implement the law ourselves. And that basically falls into understanding, أَفَتُؤْمِنُونَ بِبَعْضِ الْكِتَابِ وَتَكْفُرُونَ بِبَعْضِ Do you believe in part of the book and reject another part of the book? Because some people say, look, if a person commits an evil sin, then we will do this to them, we'll do that to them. But for example, if a person steals, will these same people go and amputate the individual's hand? No, they won't. Because they say, look, we're living in the West, we cannot do something like that. So you cannot implement the law according to your own whims and desires. Only the people in authority have the right to implement the law. وَأَمَّا مَنْ آمَنَ وَعَمِلَ صَالِحًا فَلَهُ جَزَاءً الْحُسْنَى. Whoever has the iman, has belief and does righteous actions, then we will give that individual جَزَاءً الْحُسْنَى, will have the good reward given to them. وَسَنَقُولُ لَهُ مِنْ أَمْرِنَا يُسْرًا, we will speak unto him mild words. Now, this is once again, we're trying to extract the understanding of what's taking place in the Muslim world at the moment and what Dhul Qarnayn was doing. And to be just and fair, we don't want to talk about the tyrannicals and the oppressors that we find in the Western world at the moment amongst Muslims, because rather at times we should worry about worry about our own selves as well, what exists in our own lands. As we mentioned, as the 4 countries that we focus upon, for example, Morocco, you find severe human rights violations that you find inside that country. Jordan, if you criticize the regime, you're severely punished by a jail sentence. You criticize Islam, it's only a short-term prison or a minimal fine is given to you as a constitution of that country. And that's no exaggeration. You can go and research the law of Jordan yourselves. Criticize the regime, then you'll be faced by a severe punishment in jail. You criticize Islam, it's only a short-term prison sentence or a minimal fine will be given to you. Egypt, we all know the state of Egypt and what they do in that country. You find the study of, you find the movement Ikhwan al-Muslimin, doesn't mean that we believe in all their views, etc. But to be fair and just, you find that the torture that Jamal Abdel Nasser done upon people that he done, Ikhwan, the movement, Muslim Brotherhood movement that you find, like I said, doesn't mean that we agree totally with their views, but them, the least they are is they are Muslim brothers, and they are Muslims amongst the active Muslims that have been tortured by that regime. And that torture still continues even to this day of anybody who's involved inside that movement. And even today, do you find that I've met individuals that even to this day, from what happened in the 60s, certain people won't even grow their beard because the torture that they faced, because they could be picked up by the authority just for simply growing your beard. This is supposed to be a Muslim land. In Tunisia, it's forbidden to wear the hijab in a public place. In institutes of learning, it's supposed to be a Muslim country. It's forbidden for you to grow a beard inside Tunisia, which is a Muslim country. Is also something to reflect upon. And then you find Saudi Arabia as well, even upon the correct manhaj, as people talk about methodology of advice being given to the rulers. In the year spring 1991, 453 religious scholars, judges and professors presented a understanding of the state of that country to the king of the country at that time. 453 religious scholars. People can go and research that for themselves if they feel that I'm exaggerating. In July 1992, 107 religious scholars presented to the king the memorandum of advice about what was taking place inside that country. And you can all go and read in history what took place after that memorandum of advice was given, that each and every single one of those individuals was somehow picked up or removed from their position. Now, we're not going to praise any democracy or Western lands, but sadly, it is true that at times we are given more freedom of speech in Western lands than in some Muslim lands. I'm not one to praise the West, but obviously we have to be fair that at times there is far greater freedom of speech and expression being given in these lands than there is in Muslim lands. Then you come to the east. Then Dhul Qarnayn travelled to the east. ثم أتبع السبب حتى إذا بلغ مطلع الشمس وجدها تطلع على قوم لم نجعل لهم من دونها سترا. Then he came to the place of whereby the rising place of the sun, and he found a people they who had no shelter against the sun. كذلك وقد أحطنا بما لديه خبرا. And we knew all about the state of the position of Dhul Qarnayn. And the ulama, they write, every time he passed a people, he subjugated them and called them to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then he came into this land whereby nothing grew, and these people would go into the tunnels and they would come out of the tunnels. Some ulama of tafsir have highlighted that there's no shelter for these individuals and they'll be residing inside the tunnels. Then he came to the north where you find Ya'juj wa Ma'juj. ثم أتبع السبب حتى إذا بلغ بين السدين وجد من دونهما قوما لا يكادون يفقهون قولا. He came to a people he could scarcely understand a word from these people. قالوا يا ذا القرنين إن يأجوج ومأجوج مفسدون في الأرض. They said, oh ذو القرنين, indeed Ya'juj and Ma'juj, we'll come to them inshallah, have been creating mischief in the land. فهل نجعل لك خرجا على أن تجعل بيننا وبينهم سدا. Shall we then pay you tribute in order that you may erect a barrier between us and them? قال ما مكنني فيه ربي خير فأعينوني بقوة أَجْعَلْ بَيْنَكُمْ وَبَيْنَهُمْ رَدْمًا. As for you to pay a tribute to me, some wealth or some property to given to me, I have no need for you to offer me anything. The only thing I want from you is فَعِينُونِي بِقُوَّةٍ, aid me through physical strength. Give me a workforce. أَجْعَلْ بَيْنَكُمْ وَبَيْنَهُمْ رَدْمًا, that I may, together we may place a barrier between you and those individuals, Ya'juj and Ma'juj. آتوني زبر الحديد, bring me zubur of iron, a form of iron, حتى إذا ساوى بين الصدفين, until you find that he began to fill up the gap between the two mountains or the two cliffs. قال انفخوا, and then he said blow into it, حتى إذا جعله نارا, until it became a hot fire. قال آتوني أفرغ عليه قطرا, bring me qitran to pour over them. So this is talking about the barrier which is built between the people and Ya'juj and Ma'juj. Some people call this wall or the barrier, they say firstly, one view it refers to Sur Sin al-Azim, the Great Wall of China. They said this is the barrier, this is blocking Ya'juj and Ma'juj, the people of Ya'juj and Ma'juj coming out to the public or to the human beings. This is the longest man-made structure, stretching over 6,352 kilometers, some 3,948 miles. And you find this famous proverb or this cliche, you're not a real man if you haven't climbed the Great Wall. Another view about the wall or the barrier is built between Derbent and Daryal, which are two cities of Dagestan in the Caucasus, the area of Chechnya, etc. Around that area of Dagestan, you find the land that lies between the Black Sea and the Caspian. Dagestan literally means the country of mountains. So many of the ulama, or historians go to the view that that is the place of where the Great Wall was built. In between, because you find the Quran talks about, you find حتى إذا ساوى بين الصدفين, you find fill up the gaps between the two mountains or the two cliffs. So some of the ulama go to the view that that is the location of this wall or this barrier. Well, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best. فَمَا اسْطَاعُوا أَن يَظْهَرُوهُ وَمَا اسْتَطَاعُوا لَهُ نَقَبًا, and so they cannot scale it or dig through it. قَالَ هَذَا رَحْمَةٌ مِّن رَبِّي, this is the mercy of my Lord Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. فَإِذَا جَاءَ وَعْدُ رَبِّي جَعَلَهُ دَكًّا, and the promise of my Lord comes about, then obviously it will just fall flat to the ground. وَكَانَ وَعْدُ رَبِّي حَقًّا, and indeed the promise of my Lord is truth, or is true. وَتَرَكْنَا بَعْدَهُمْ يَوْمَئِذٍ يَمُوجُ فِي بَعْدٍ وَنُفِخَ فِي الصُّورِ فَجَمَعْنَاهُمْ جَمْعًا, and we'll let them come out and surge like waves on one another, and the trumpet will be blown, and we should collect them all together. So after it, the coming of the hour, and you'll find, because when Ya'juj and Ma'juj are released, because this is from amongst the major signs of their judgment, and after that you'll find the coming of the final hour will happen there. Now, before we come to Ya'juj and Ma'juj, who these individuals they are, who these creatures are, and you find that it's not something trivial or something small or to be ignored about. Zainab bint Jahsh, one of the wives of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, says that the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ woke up from his sleep and he was red in the face. And he said, لا إله إلا الله ويل للعرب من شر قد اقترب فتح اليوم من ردم يأجوج ومأجوج مثل هذا. And he said that none has the right to be worshipped except for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and he woe upon the Arabs from the evil which is about to approach them. Today, فتح اليوم ردم يأجوج, the mountain or small hole in Ya'juj and Ma'juj has been opened up from the wall of Ya'juj and Ma'juj, meaning they're about to be released soon. She said, O Messenger of Allah, will we be destroyed even though there will be righteous people amongst us? He said, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Na'am idha kathur al-khabath. He said, yes, if any sickness or misdeeds, evil deeds, evil actions become prominent in the land, then even the salihin, the righteous people, will be destroyed amongst them as well. So when people think just let the people do what they want to do, don't fall into that mistake, because that in itself could be a sin, linguistically. I'm not saying you are sinful, but you are sinful as well if you don't try to change the state of affairs that you are in. That the punishment of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will even come upon the righteous people if sin becomes prominent in the land. Now we find that before we delve into the following ayat which talk about Ya'juj wa Ma'juj, it would be appropriate to know ala aslihim, the essence of what is Ya'juj wa Ma'juj. What is the meaning of Ya'juj wa Ma'juj? Or where does this word develop from? this title. First you find Isman A'jamiyan. These are two non-Arabic names. Another opinion, these are two actual Arabic names or titles that you find. As for you find that if it's taken from the view of non-Arabic names, then they're not derived, they're direct names. Ya'juj and Ma'juj is just a direct name, because the Arabic language, most times, names are derived from a source, from initial meaning. So if it's a non-Arabic name, they're just simply titles. Ya'juj and Ma'juj is the title of these individuals. If they are Arabic names, then they are derived or taken from a certain form. So for example, Ajjat al-nar ajijan. Yani Ajjat al-nar ajijan, to blaze and to becomes blazing. Then likewise find al-ujaj, something which is salty. وَهُوَ الْمَاءُ الشَّدِيدُ الْمَلُوحَ. Al-aj, وَهُوَ سُرْعَةُ الْعَدُوِ, is the quickness of the enemy. Ma'juj min maj idha turiba. Ma'juj is taken from the word to mix or to swarm. وَتَرَكْنَا بَعْدُهُمْ يَوْمَئِذٍ يَمُوجُ فِي بَعْدٍ. As we make them come out, they will swarm and mix with one into the other. It's just some linguistic understanding of Ya'juj and Ma'juj. They say Ya'juj ala wazn yaf'ul wa Ma'juj ala wazn maf'ul. Those who study the Arabic language, you'll know what these terminology returns back to. Or ala wazn fa'ul fihima. وقرأ الجمهور ياجوج وماجوج بدون همز. And some people say Ya'juj and Ma'juj without the hamza. But the correct understanding is Ya'juj and Ma'juj. And so you find that via the name, they sound beastly, dangerous, even monsters are not even human beings. Ya'juj, Ma'juj, you don't get a human being understanding from them. That's why you find, as we mentioned previously, linguistics talk about the Arabic language is one of the few languages in the world that you find that the actual word itself carries the meaning. The actual word carries the meaning of the word it's trying to talk about. Now, the Jews and the Christians say that they're the satanic powers who wage war against God and righteous at the end of the world is Ya'juj and Ma'juj. Some claim they are half human and half beast, and they are beastly and ugly, due to أن آدم احتلم, that Adam had a wet dream. فاختلط منيه بالتراب, and his semen mixed with the earth. فخلق الله من ذلك يأجوج ومأجوج, and from there you find the creation يأجوج ومأجوج. وهذا مما لا دليل عليه. There's no evidence for this, but just a false understanding some people have of the concept of Ya'juj and Ma'juj. Some people say they are from the progeny of Nuh, and some say from Yafith, from the son of Nuh. But what can be concluded, they are from human beings, as does the Sahih Hadith of Bukhari highlight as well. يقول الله تعالى يا آدم فيقول لبيك وسعديك. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala say to Adam, call upon Adam, and he will say لبيك وسعديك, here I am responding to your call. والخير في يديك, and all goodness lies in your hands. فيقول أخرج بعث النار. We said that take out the people of the fire. قال ما بعث النار, what is the people of the fire? قال من كل 1999, from every 1999. فعنده يشيب الصغير, at that stage the person will become white-haired. وتدع كل ذات حمل حملها, and every pregnant woman would drop her load. وترى الناس السكارى, people will look like they're in a state of drunkenness. وما هم بالسكارى, but they are not drunk. ولكن عذاب الله شديد, but indeed the punishment of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is severe. قالوا وأينا ذلك الواحد, and from amongst us who is that one? قال أبشروا, say have glad tidings. فإن منكم رجلان من يأجوج ومأجوج 1000. From amongst you it be the one man, and 1,000 from Ya'juj and Ya'juj. So that's how some individuals say وَأَيُّنَا, from amongst us, that it refers back to a source of human beings. As for more direct wording that you find, أَنَّ يَأْجُوجُ مَعْجُوجُ مِنْ وَلَدْ آدَمَ وَأَنَّهُمْ لَوْ أُرْسِلُوا إِلَى النَّاسِ لَأَفْسَدُوا عَلَيْهِمْ مَعَايِشَهُمْ وَلَنْ يَمُوتَ مِنْهُمْ أَحَدٌ إِلَّا تَرَكَ مِنْ ذُرِّيَّتِهِ أَلْفًا فَصَاعِدًا. So here you find this hadith, أَنَّ يَأْجُوجُ مَعْجُوجُ مِنْ وَلَدْ آدَمَ, that Ya'juj and Ma'juj are from the children of Adam, and they are to be thrown upon the people لَأَفْسَدُوا عَلَيْهِمْ مَعَايِشَهُمْ, that they will come and cause corruption in their life, and not one of them will die or be taken away, except for that he will leave from his progeny 1,000 or even more than that. The hadith give them resemblance to human beings as well. If you read the sifatuhum or sifatuhum, if you read the descriptions about them, even though many of the hadith are very, very weak in nature, but some of those which are true, and some of them sound very strange as well, is jinsu min Turk, or al-Mughul, the Tartars. You find a mixture of people and a mixture of bloods. That's what you find at the time of Ibn Taymiyyah. Some people even thought that the Tartars at that time, because you find that Sigharul Uyun, the Khazars, that small-eyed, Dhuluful Unuf, sharp nose that you find, Sahbul Shu'ur, red hair that you find, and you find other narrations of them wearing shoes of wool, etc. So obviously a lot of people took the view that the Mughals, or the Tartars at that time, they were Ya'juj and Ma'juj, and even the characteristics that they had. That you find that the way that they would come upon the people, like a barbaric form of coming upon the people and slaying them and spilling their blood and all types of things that you find. As a side point, you find that when Shaykh Islam Ibn Taymiyyah was fighting against the Tartars, that you find, even though they were Muslims, that he found some of them drinking. And subhanAllah, look at the fiqh, look at the understanding of Shaykh Islam Ibn Taymiyyah. One of his students said to Shaykh Islam Ibn Taymiyyah, why don't you refute these people? Why don't you say something about these people drinking in front of you? You know they're Muslims, ya Shaykh. Why don't you refute them? And he said, leave them alone. Because in their drunkenness, at least they're not going to rampage and go and kill anyone. They're going to drink and they're going to fall asleep here. As if these people are inside their senses, then they would come and rampage into our land and rape our women and torture our children, etc., and do all types of evil atrocities. So that was the understanding that Shaykh Ibn Taymiyyah had a deep understanding of fiqh. Sometimes you may think that why doesn't a person do certain actions and not do them, is because wisdom and fiqh will only come after many, many long years of studying of the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. عراض الوجوه كأن وجوههم المجان المطرقة. ذكر ابن حجر بعض الآثار في صفتهم ولكنها روايات ضعيفة. Ibn Hajar mentions many آثار narrations about them, but most of them are weak in nature. The Ahmadiyya movement takes the opinion that the European nations are Ya'juj and Ma'juj. Quite strange that Ahmadiyya movement makes that statement, because they themselves were instigated by the British themselves. What can be concluded from the authentic narrations, أنهم رجال أقوياء, that they are strong men, they are physically strong individuals. لا طاقة لأحد بقتالهم, it's not easy for one of you to kill one of these individuals. And thus some took the opinions we already mentioned, that they have already come out. Amongst those individuals who took that view was people like Sayyid Qutb. He took the view that وهم التتار الذين ظهروا في القرن السابع الهجري, that they are the Tatar, as I mentioned, who came out in the 7th year of the Islamic calendar, 7th century of the Islamic calendar. وَدَمَّرُوا الْمَمَالِيكَ الْإِسْلَامِيَّةِ وَعَاثُوا فِي الْأَرْضِ فَسَادًا, and they destroyed the Islamic empire, etc., in his works, in the shade of the Qur'an. And obviously people may pick up on that and say, oh, there we go again, Sayyid Qutb, there's something to criticize him about. He wasn't the only one who had that view. Even before him, Imam Qurtubi took the view, who came many centuries before him. And he took the view, وَسَمِعَ عَنْهُمْ مَا سَمِعَ مِنَ الْفَسَادِ وَالْقَتْلِ فَظَنَّهُمْ يَعْجُوجُ وَمَعْجُوجُ أَوْ مُقَدِّمَتَهُمْ. So Tafsir Qurtubi, he also took the view when a certain group of people existed there. He took the view that these people are Ya'juj or Ma'juj, or they are the beginning or the coming of Ya'juj, of Ma'juj, is the view of Imam al-Qurtubi as well. And you find it's not possible for them to come. And the answer why it's not possible for them to come at that time, or they did exist before, is because we find that they will only appear after the descent of Isa ibn Maryam. So when Isa ibn Maryam will come, then you will find the coming of Ya'juj and Ma'juj. So if people existed before who shared the same characteristics of being small-eyed, shiny faces, sharp noses, wearing woolen clothing, etc., behaving in this immoral manner, etc., barbaric manner, those are just nations that may have gone past, because the correct understanding is that they will come after the coming of Isa. Thus you find in the hadith, إِذَا أَوْحَى اللَّهَ إِلَىٰ عِيسَى أَنِّي قَدْ أَخْرَجْتُ عِبَادًا لِي لَا يُدَانُ لِأَحَدْ بِقِتَالِهِمْ. Verily it will be ordered to Isa will be given to him, that I brought out certain individuals. No individual will be able to slay these individuals. وَحَرِّزْ عِبَادِي لَطُورٍ Bring my servants to the mountain of Tur. وَيَبْعَثَ اللَّهُ يَعْجُوجُ مَعْجُوجُ وَهُمْ مِنْ كُلِّ حَدَبٍ يَنْسِلُونَ And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will send out Ya'juj and Ma'juj. So here the hadith talk about when Isa has returned back, Ya'juj and Ma'juj will come out, or before that they will be inside the land, and then it will be the task of Isa ibn Maryam to appear there at the same time as Ad-Dajjal. Just like the verse that you find, حَتَّى إِذَا فُتِحَتْ يَأْجُوجُ وَمَأْجُوجُ وَهُمْ مِنْ كُلِّ حَدَبٍ يَنْسِلُونَ Just when the doors are open for Ya'juj and Ma'juj, and you'll find that they'll be coming from every single hadab. Hadab is كل موضع غليظ مرتفع. Is every high, harsh location. يظهرون من غليظ الأرض مرتفعة. They will come from every single high location and they will swarm down. Once again, you find the high location as mentioned previously when we talked about the Great Wall. As you find, once again, ulama go to the opinion, Dagestan, that area of Dagestan where you find the high mountains, and Samarkand. And thus you find this concept of the gate of Samarkand, this famous gate. Some people believe that that is a location that Ya'juj and Ma'juj will swarm through. Likewise, you find Imam al-Tirmidhi, when he was from the land of that area of Samarkand, or the land of Tirmidh as well. And some people talk about it being the land of ice. Could be beneficial knowledge to look into these areas. But you find that these individuals are always causing mischief, and thus you find that they were sealed behind that barrier. So they're causing mischief previously, and then they were sealed behind that barrier. قالوا يا ذا القرنين إن يأجوج ومأجوج مفسدون في الأرض, verses number 94 and 95. Indeed, Ya'juj and Ma'juj have been creating mischief in the land. فهل نجعل لك خرجا, shall we pay you as a tribute, as we mentioned previously, على أن تجعل بيننا وبينهم سدا, to place between us and them a barrier. قال ما مكنني فيه ربي خير, whatever my Lord has given me is far greater. فأعينوني بقوة أجعل بينكم وبينهم ردما, give me the physical manpower to create this barrier between us and them. So don't tempt or bribe or try to favor me. Once again, Sulaiman alayhi salam, the king, same words like Dhul Qarnayn. Bilqis is trying to offer him something. And he says, أَتُمِدُّونَنِي بِمَالٍ فَمَا آتَانِيَ اللَّهُ خَيْرٌ مِمَّا آتَاكُمْ. Are you trying to bribe me some wealth? Are you trying to offer me some gifts to distract me? What my Lord Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given me is far greater than what you're trying to offer to me. Are the words of Sulaiman alayhi salam. And now here once again, repeat about Dhul Qarnayn, that don't try to offer a tribute or some money or some wealth to me. Now we find that previously we looked at the ayat, and it did not explain the finer meaning of Atuni Zubar al-Hadid. Bring me Zubar al-Hadid. Zubar, Ibn Abbas and Mujahid and Qatada say is pieces or chunks of iron. Bricks or blocks is another view. And thus you find Hadid. Why iron? Why is the word iron used here? There's the whole chapter in the Quran called Surah Al-Hadid, the 57th chapter of the Quran, which means the iron. وَأَنزَلْنَا الْحَدِيدَ فِيهِ بَعْسٌ شَدِيدٌ وَمَنَافِعُ لِلنَّاسِ, verse number 25 of the 57th chapter. We have sent down al-hadid, the iron, فِيهِ بَعْسٌ شَدِيدٌ, in it is a mighty power. See, the words of the Quran are for all time. They're the words that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala uses. And filled the width and height of that gap. قَالَ انْفُخُوا حَتَّى إِذَا جَعَلَهُ النَّارَ, and then they burnt or they lit a fire and melted and heated the iron to solidify it. So they were trapped in this area, and then they sealed them over with this lead, and then that lead was once again heated, and then they covered it with copper. The meaning of qitr, as we did not mention, Ibn Abbas says, قَالَ آتُونِي أُفْرِقْ عَلَيْهِ قِطْرًا, bring me the qitr, that we may place it or pour it upon them. They said that the qitr is copper. So they sealed with iron, the gate is sealed with iron, and the top of it is solidified with copper to make sure that these individuals remain in that location. And there is no way out for these individuals. فَمَسْطَاعُوا أَنْ يَظْهَرُوهُ, there's no way for them to scale. وَمَسْتَطَاعُوا أَنْ لَهُ نَقْبًا, and there's no way for these individuals to dig through it. However, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given them the ability or the opportunity to dig somehow. As we mentioned the hadith that we mentioned about Zaynab bin Jahsh, and the Prophet Muhammad mentioned that وَحَلَّقَ بِأَصْبَعِهِ al-ibham wallati taliha. And in the hadith you find that he made a sign like this, that they have made a hole of this size inside the wall. So they began to dig, and then we find the rest of the hadith. We mentioned that are we going to be destroyed if there's going to be khabath? You will be destroyed, there's khabath. We didn't mention previously about khabath. Some ulama said al-fawahish, illicit behavior. All types of illicit sexual behavior that becomes common in the land, then you will find that all the people will be destroyed. So don't think that if it's just a concept of shirk that would destroy people. Al-fawahish is also a reason for the destruction of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala coming upon a people. In another location, hadith, we find that they dig and they get close. And they say that we will continue. But when they return back, the hole is sealed once again. You have to begin digging afresh once again, without saying inshallah. But one day they do say inshallah, and when they do return, the hole remains where it was. And remember, we said the whole theme of this surah is mentioning inshallah. So Ya'juj and Ma'juj, they get close to coming out, they get tired, they retreat, and they say we'll come back tomorrow. They don't say inshallah, and the hole is sealed by the permission of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala once again. However, on one occasion they'll say that inshallah we'll come back, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala leaves the efforts that they've done. There's enough for them to be let out the next day, and that is a time decreed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. قَالَ هَذَا رَحْمَةٌ مِّن رَبِّي, as Dhul Qarnayn mentions himself, this is the mercy of my Lord. فَإِذَا جَاءَ وَعْدُ رَبِّي, if the promise of my Lord comes, جَعَلَهُ دَكَّ, my Lord Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will make it fall down to the ground. Dakka is like a female camel whose back is flat, which has no hump. So meaning that this great wall that is being created will just fall down totally, as it does not exist. وَكَانَ وَعْدُ رَبِّي حَقًّا, indeed my promise of my Lord is a truthful promise. And likewise you find in the Quran, فَلَمَّا تَجَلَّى رَبُّهُ لِلْجَبَلِ جَعَلَهُ دَكَّا, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala exposed himself to the mountain جَعَلَهُ دَكَّا, the mountain became into crumbs, fell down, shattered to the ground, is what will happen to this great barrier which is built between the people and Ya'juj and Ma'juj. Then they will come out. In verse number 99, وَتَرَكْنَا بَعْدُهُمْ يَوْمَئِذٍ يَمُوجُ فِي بَعْدٍ, they will let them come out and they will swarm one on top of the other. وَنُفِخَ فِي الصُّورِ, then we blow into the trumpet. فَجَمَعْنَاهُمْ جَمْعًا, then we'll bring them all together. Just like the verse that we previously mentioned in Surah Al-Anbiya, حَتَّى إِذَا فُتِحَتْ يَأْجُوجُ وَمَأْجُوجُ وَهُمْ مِنْ كُلِّ حَدَبٍ يَنْسِلُونَ, and then when the doors are open, you find Ya'juj and Ma'juj will be coming, swarming down from every single high location, coming down upon the people in Surah Al-Anbiya, the 21st chapter, verse number 96. And this time, as the hadith state, تَحَرِّز عِبَادِ لَطُور, that my people will go to the mount of Tur. And you find that they will drink the water of the lake al-Tabariya, they will kill people, وَلَا بِشَيْءٍ إِلَّا أَفْسَدُوهُ, there will not be anything except for they cause corruption upon the land. And when they've killed whatever is in front of them, they will say, now let us kill what is in the heavens. And so when it comes to trying to kill whatever is in the heavens, you find they will throw or fire their arrows into the sky. And the arrows will come back stained with blood. So they will get proud and say, قَهَرْنَا أَهْلَ الْأَرْضِ, we dominated the people of the land. وَغَلَّبْنَا مَنْ فِي السَّمَاءِ قُوَّةً وَعُلُوًا, and we even kill whatever exists in the heavens or in the skies, and we are dominant and a powerful force. And the way that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would destroy these individuals, you find that they will be wiped out. You'll find a نَغَث فِي رِقَابِهِمْ, that a worm يكون في which goes into أنوف الإبل والغنم, which goes into the noses of the camels and beasts, will enter into them, which will destroy them. It's a certain like a wild worm that you find which destroys the camels, etc. Will go into their necks, etc., and destroy them. And they will all die together, their bodies in a foul smell and stench will be there. And then you find Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will send طَيْرًا كَأَعْنَاقِ الْبُخْتِ, will send birds which have necks like a long camel, and pick them up and take them away. حَيْثُ شَاءَ اللَّهُ, wherever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants to take them away, is in the hadith as collected by Imam Muslim in his Sahih. And then you'll find that the rule of Islam will return Isa, and there will be peace and dominance at that land there. And some of the hadith which talk about the minor or the major signs of the Day of Judgment, for example, you look at the signs before the Day of Judgment of Ibn Kathir. If you read that book, there are some hadith which are not authentic, but I think the new version has been revised once again, and this has more checking there. Likewise, you find, I think Sheikh Dr. Sulaiman al-Ashqar, in his series, his belief series in the last days, that he does talk a lot of these affairs as well. Likewise, the book, Ashratu Sa'a of Dr. Yusuf al-Wabil, Ashratu Sa'a, signs, of the last day, of Sheikh Yusuf al-Wabil, is an Arabic source that many contemporary speakers do use that book as a source, talk about the hereafter, etc. Even Imam Anwar al-Awlaqi uses that book mainly as a prime source in his series, talking about the hereafter, etc. as a famous book in the Arabic language, and a very beneficial book. But coming back to the surah, that we find that in conclusion that you can find any certain benefits that now we can begin to appreciate and understand after learning the importance and benefits of this surah. Obviously the benefits of Yawm al-Jum'ah, the light that one can gain if person ponders and reflects over this surah, how the young people need to be steadfast to persevere and continue upon the long journey of Islam. Anything that I mentioned about the rule and the law, etc. I mean, my intent is not to cause upheaval or to criticize individuals, etc. That's not my intent, inshallah, just to highlight any certain scenarios that we live in. Obviously we need to persevere and continue the long journey of Islam, and then we find to seek knowledge from the wise and wise individuals and the ulama and the scholars, and to develop this into humbleness, as many of us tawadu, humbleness, that we learn from the story of Musa and Khidr. And then we find to revitalize the correct concept of tazkiyah and zuhud, because that's what you find that many people, that's what they criticize Ahl Sunnah about. That's why more and more people go towards a da'wah, the Sufiya, of the mystical individual. They say that you're very dry individuals, there's no spirituality in you. And that's partially our fault, because that's the perception that we give. Islam, as we mentioned, is a religion full of tazkiyah, of zuhud, abstinence, and spirituality according to the Qur'an and the Sunnah. And that's why we find many people, they don't find that amongst us, so they tend to look at other means of finding individuals who are abstaining from the dunya. We need to revitalize once again the correct stance of Ahl Sunnah and show that Ahl Sunnah are the people of tazkiyah. And then we find we began with a lesson of Tawheed, and all the way to the end, that is a message of the Muslim. So don't let any Muslim say that this individual, he has a personal, any political agenda, whatever. No, the agenda of every single Muslim is the message of Tawheed, right from the beginning to the end. And for every place, there's times to talk about certain other issues, but the most important goal for every single individual is Tawheed, to live according to Tawheed and to die upon Tawheed, and one's return back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala upon that oneness. And we will, inshallah, throughout our life, never ever belittle that message. That is the prime message that Prophet sent Mu'adh ibn Jabal to Yemen. You are going to a people who commit shirk, let the first thing that you call them to be Tawheed. And that is what we should be living in this land. The first thing that we should be talking about is the concept of Tawheed to these people. And anything else that I mentioned can just be rejected and trashed in the bin, etc. But the final verse that we find of Surah Kahf, the 18th chapter, verse 110, it just concludes with all of that. فَمَنْ كَانَ يَرْجُو لِقَاءَ رَبِّهِ فَلْيَعْمَلْ عَمَلًا صَالِحًا وَلَا يُشْرِكْ بِعِبَادَةِ رَبِّهِ أَحَدًا. And whoever hopes to meet his Lord Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, فَلْيَعْمَلْ عَمَلًا صَالِحًا, let that individual carry out righteous actions, وَلَا يُشْرِكْ بِعِبَادَةِ رَبِّهِ أَحَدًا, and let not that individual associate any partners with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in that worship that he does committed towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So with that, we bring this discussion to a close, and I hope that inshallah that these words throughout our study of Tawheed and this surah have inspired all of us to go back and to have a deeper understanding of the words of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and build a closer and a finer relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and to take what we learn of the good and to benefit other people with. Anything good I've said has been nothing but the blessing of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Anything incorrect or against the methodology of the Qur'an and the Sunnah has been from my own self and the wisdom of shaitan, and the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is free from that, and we only hope to aspire to meet him on that day, and the day that we follow a path of the Sunnah in this world, and likewise to be with him in the Akhirah amongst the people of the Sunnah. Wa jazakumullahu khair, barakallahu feekum, subhanakallah wa bihamdik, ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk.
الله.